Welcome to Sally Fox audiobook. The hero turned into a potato and the world fell to ruin. Chapter 76-100 Hippo. Books 25 chapters. Memo 30,479 word stopwatch. 122-minute read. Novel notes. 968 words. A white light flashed, and before Mervyn could even react, he was summoned back to Caladora's side, his blade still mid-swing. Callie, he stammered, staring at her in shock. Why did you pull me back? I was just about to. His words were cut short by the rush of wind beside him. Guagua stood with her bow drawn taut, eyes blazing with fervent intensity as she recited an incantation. Energy swirled around the arrow, akin to a miniature hurricane sigil engraved onto the slender shaft, its tip aimed directly at the ground below. Mervyn was taken aback on hearing her chanting. He vaguely recalled Jirunini saying that Guagua didn't know incantation and each enchantment on her arrows was purely from rote memorization. Yet this war song-like chant was so intricate and lengthy it was hard to believe anyone could memorize it just by mimicking the syllables. Mervyn's gaze slowly shifted downward. In the midst of the army below, the 49 arrows that had previously missed their mark had transformed into centers of swirling wind, forming a complex magic array. Unlike a spell array, which could be conjured during battle through chanting and mana control, a magic array required pre-arranged setup, making it significantly more potent than a spell at the same level. Guagua had achieved this with just her bow and a quiver of arrows, right on the battlefield. And as her recitation reached its crescendo, the energy swirling around her arrow intensified further. A pang of realization hit Mervyn. He now understood why Guagua's master insisted she become a caster archer, even knowing she struggled with spell casting. Finally, Guagua released her bowstring. The arrow, glowing with green energy, struck straight in the center of the magic array, instantaneously causing the energies of the 49 other arrows to converge at the point. A colossal tornado erupted, engulfing the soldiers nearby, including the giants who were too slow to react. And those who reacted could only claw at the ground with their long fingernails as they were sucked into the vortex. Then, upon reaching a critical point, all 49 arrows ignited, transforming the windstorm into a towering inferno. Scorching heat consumed everything within seconds, reducing soldiers to ashes and turning giants into charred husks, which the wind then scattered. The fiery whirlwind raged for a full 3 minutes. When it finally subsided, the battlefield below was swept clean, the once countless enemies reduced to dust. Only the half-burnt arrows remained as a testament to the battle that had taken place. Guagua, satisfied with her clean sweep, looked at Mervyn and smiled. Mr. Mervyn, I didn't mess up this time, right? No, Mervyn replied earnestly. You did great. Incredible, actually. Heh, that's good to hear. Guagua muttered as her body went limp and collapsed. Caladora, quick to react, caught her as she fell. Callie, is she okay? Mervyn asked anxiously. Let me see. She's fine, it's just overexertion. She just needs to rest. Mervyn heaved a sigh of relief. Oh, that's good. He suddenly grabbed his 2 companions and leaped up onto an even higher sky bridge just as a grey spear struck the spot where they had previously been. A figure in grey armor appeared beside the spear, retrieving it with a cold, emotionless gaze. Mervyn felt his hair stand on end. He recognized this armor, it was unforgettable. Years ago, thousands of soldiers in this very armor had invaded Dragon City and destroyed his home. Damn, Mervyn muttered, his voice slightly trembling. Why would the tyrant's elite guard be here? Liu Ji recalled an old game called Beachhead, where the objective was simple, a player, 1 cannon, fending off waves of charging enemies from all directions. Yang was essentially doing just that right now. Perched atop a structure, countless miniature spell arrays floated around her, unleashing bolts of lightning in every direction. Though the lightning wasn't strong enough to kill, it paralyzed the soldiers, causing them to tumble from the rooftops to their deaths below. Liu Ji's task was to deal with the giants attempting to ambush them. Despite the giants' superior strength, Liu Ji found no difference between them and the regular soldiers, they all went down with a single punch. Handling the giants was easier than dealing with the swarm of small fry. Together, they managed to halt what seemed like an unstoppable onslaught. They expended minimal energy, while the enemy forces continuously dwindled. Liu Ji began to think they might actually extinguish this horde. Well, that was what Liu Ji presently thought. As time went on, Liu Ji noticed that the enemy's assault seemed to be slowing down. He had already taken down several giants, yet dozens more still surrounded him below. However, despite waiting for some time, no more enemies leaped up to challenge him. Looking at Yang, he saw that several of her floating spell arrays had gone idle as if they too were puzzled by the enemy's reduced aggression. She kept glancing around, searching for an explanation. Is this the calm before the storm? Liu Ji wondered. Or are they planning a coordinated attack? Surveying the area, Liu Ji realized that if they all decided to jump up at once, he wouldn't be able to fend them off. Perhaps I should grab Yane and dodge the first wave, then figure out a counter-attack? As he pondered this, lost in thought, he suddenly heard Yane's urgent cry from behind. Watch out! Above you! Before she could finish, a monstrous sword descended from above, cleaving Liu Ji cleanly in half. If you are enjoying the novel, please take a minute to leave a review on Novel Updates. Support me on Patreon and gain access to advanced chapters. Check out my other novels. I'm really not the demon god's lack of conquering otherworld starts with a game. Novel notes. 1050 words. Clang! The mighty axe cut through the air, splitting yet another giant in two. Jirunini landed on the floor, breathing heavily. Despite the aura of blood around her being more plentiful now, the prolonged battle had taken its toll, and she was severely exhausted. Fortunately, most of the giants had been slain by her and Osar, and the remaining grunts could be cleaned up at leisure. Gritting her teeth, she swung her axe, clearing a path through scattered grunts, and sprang toward the last giant. But this time, something unprecedented happened. The giant turned and fled. Jirunini faltered, momentarily surprised before bursting into a manic laugh. Ha ha ha! So you know fear after all. Run, then. Let's see how far you can run. Without a second thought, she chased after the retreating giant. Osar shouted in alarm, Jirunini! Don't! It might be a trap. However, he knew it was futile. In her frenzied state, Jirunini wouldn't listen. Her berserker rage heightened her combat prowess at the cost of her ability to think rationally. With no choice, Osar fought his way through the swarming soldiers, determined to catch up with her. His fears were soon realized. As Jirunini's axe descended on the fleeing giant, a grey figure appeared behind her, slashing downward with a sword. Perceiving the attack thanks to her extraordinary senses, Jirunini twisted in midair, parrying the oncoming blade with her axe. However, she couldn't block the follow-up. A silver shield smashed into her, sending her crashing to the ground. The fleeing giant, seeing an opportunity, turned back with the intention of finishing Jirunini off. Fortunately, Osar intervened in the nick of time, delivering a powerful double kick that sent the giant reeling into a nearby wall with blood streaming from its head. Yet, Osar found no relief. When unleashing his second kick, Osar had already sensed a presence behind him. As he was suspended in midair at that moment with nothing to brace against, he could only rely on his innate ability to maneuver his body to manage a turn. Still, he had barely done a half-turn when the enemy's sword slashed into his side, exposing the bone. A second slash followed, which he barely parried, but the force hurled him against the wall, causing him to black out. The knight in grey-white armor clearly had no intention of letting this opportunity slip by. He raised his long sword, ready to deliver a final blow to the unconscious Tiger Man. However, in the next moment, he abruptly turned, and his shield radiated with a bright light that formed a barrier in front of him. Clang! A huge axe crashed down on the white barrier, causing spiderweb-like cracks to form across the barrier's surface. Gripping her axe tightly, Jirunini glared furiously at her opponent. Right now, her eyes were completely black, with only her crimson pupils that were menacing. Her blood aura, previously rampant, was now entirely restrained around her. Next, she drew back her axe while spinning in midair before cleaving down on that thick barrier once more. This time, the barrier of condensed energy shattered. Then, her body spun once more, and her axe struck the knight's shield. The tearing of metal produced a piercing screech, but the shield absorbed the impact entirely. And in the next moment, the shield glowed and reflected the accumulated force, sending Jirunini flying. As she sailed through the air, Jirunini flipped and twisted several times, successfully regaining her balance. She landed gracefully, whirling her axe around, cleaving through a bunch of hapless grunts. Blood spurted from their severed bodies, transforming into streams of energy that flowed into her. As she absorbed more and more blood energy, the sword and shield knight could also sense his opponent growing stronger. However, he also noticed disturbing changes in her. Jirunini's bones seemed to be morphing under her skin, and red veins began to show from her eyes to her temples. Her teeth became jagged, and sharp bone spurs started protruding from her joints. She breathed heavily from her mouth, though it sounded more beastly than anything. The knight observed silently, though sword and shield was raised, wary of her next move. But, in the next moment, a figure appeared behind Jirunini and lightly tapped on her head. The blood aura instantly dissipated, and Jirunini's returned to normal as her body went limp, and she collapsed to the ground. Ha! Kid, you really know how to worry others. The voice belonged to the arrival, a female knight in mithril armor. She then glanced up at the grey sword and shield knight ahead. Looks like you've roughed up my members considerably, huh? I wonder why the tyrant's elite guard would be here after never appearing for over a decade, but it seems like you serve a new master. The sword and shield knight didn't respond, simply adopting a combat stance, readying himself for battle. Ah, right, I almost forgot. Even the elite guards are just mute fodder, the female knight said, swinging her long sword. A circular wave of energy spread out, slicing through the approaching grunts. Well then, bring it on. You've messed with my team members, so don't expect a merciful death. Meanwhile, on another battlefield, a blooded and exhausted Mervant was on one knee, gasping for breath. In front of Mervant stood a Miffy, back-turned, carrying a massive book that dwarfed his own body. The Miffy glanced over his shoulder and smirked. Heh, little Merv, you sure look a mess. Ha, you should have arrived earlier, then. Mervant chuckled. I thought you were dead, you stingy old miser. He, really? Sounds like you were worried about me. I'm touched, the Miffy replied, turning fully to face the grey-armored spearman ahead. Well then, let me even the score for you. White smoke billowed from the massive book on his back, coalescing into a towering creature with 4 claws, wings, and a form that resembled both a wolf and a dragon. Radiance, he murmured, go, tear that fella apart. Not too much though, 18 pieces should do. If you are enjoying the novel, please take a minute to leave a review on Novel Updates. Support me on Patreon and gain access to advanced chapters. Check out my other novels. Time really not the demon god's lacquer conquering otherworld starts with a game. Novel notes. 1,103 words. Chewing. The long sword cut through, slicing Liu Ji's body diagonally in two. Liu Ji didn't care though. His upper body, still airborne, threw a punch at the black-armored commander's face. Unfortunately, this amateurish punch was easily dodged, and the commander countered with another swift stroke, further slicing Liu Ji into 4. The next moment, the dismembered pieces of Liu Ji suddenly vanished and, with a flicker, reappeared behind the black-armored commander, fully intact and launching another punch. Yet, as if already anticipating this move, the black-armored commander effortlessly dodged again and countered with a click that sent Liu Ji flying. As he flew through the air, Liu Ji's body flickered, and he reappeared once more between the black-armored commander and Yane. Scrutinizing the black-armored commander, Liu Ji felt annoyed. This was clearly a high-level enemy, vastly different from the previous simple-minded brutes. Liu Ji was outclassed in terms of combat skills and reaction speed. After several rounds of exchanging blows, Liu Ji hadn't landed a single hit, while he himself had been sliced up many times over. If it weren't for Mr. Miser's cheat-like research, no amount of lives would be enough for Liu Ji. Yane, on the other hand, was bewildered. She felt her heart nearly stop when the commander first sliced Liu Ji in half. But the very next second, Liu Ji had reassembled himself and tried to strike back. Though he missed and was slashed once more. He was sliced vertically the first time, horizontally on the second. Still, he reassembled almost immediately, leaving Yane dumbfounded. She couldn't be faulted for reacting in such a manner. After all, this kind of bizarre technique was possibly unique to Miser, who couldn't leave the desert. Liu Ji, with his own special ability, had benefited from Miser's research, allowing him to gallivant the world with this body. Yane had never seen or even heard of such an ability before. Even pure elemental spirits would dissipate when disturbed by foreign magic or hit with an opposing element. As for that black-armored commander, Yane recognized it. The lowest-ranking commander in the tyrant's army, typically leading large platoons or elite squads. Such commanders were equipped with heavy armor, a powerful magic-resistant cloak, and a greatsword imbued with chaos magic. There were races that could resist physical slashing, but this sword's attacks weren't just slashes, they carried the effect of chaos magic, devouring and destroying life force. Many races suffered greatly when they first faced these commanders. The fact that this attack was ineffective against Liu Ji was astonishing. Fortunately, Liu Ji was managing to hold him off. After a final glance at the two continuing their seemingly futile battle, Yane took a deep breath and focused on her spell to locate their companions. The black-armored commander's cloak could counter 3 strong spells in a short time. To break through it, Yane needed to cast 4 spells in rapid succession, with the final one being especially powerful. This meant that the best way to deal with it would be to cast 3 mid-level spells followed by a high-level one, where the chanting had to be adjusted accordingly to finish in the exact order and period. Just thinking about it gave Yane a headache. She could do it, but if she started chanting, the commander would likely target her, and Liu Ji wouldn't be able to stop him. Yane reckoned that even her own teacher might struggle having to deal with close-ranged attacks of such a high-level enemy while casting complex spells. Thus, the best strategy was to gang up on the commander, breaking his cloak, so she could finish him off with a powerful spell. So, for now, Yane would act less conspicuously while trying to detect traces of the others first. "Damn it! Where did all of you run off to?" muttered Yane. "Don't get yourselves killed, y'all." Clang! The female knight's shield parried the Grey Knight's longsword and countered with an upward slash that forced the latter back several steps. She pressed her attack, stepping forward with a shield bash. The Grey Knight managed to block, but stumbled and nearly fell. Before he could recover, the female knight's next slash was already upon him. He raised his sword in a desperate block, but the impact knocked the weapon out of his hands, and it was sent flying. A thrust followed. The Grey Knight barely raised his shield, only to see a sword arc around it, slicing through his elbow joint. Effortlessly, as if cutting through butter, the female knight severed her foe's forearm and shield. Blood sprayed as the limb fell to the floor. Stumbling back, the grey-armored knight reached for his fallen sword, but his opponent gave him no chance. Her footwork was precise, following him like a shadow. Her next strike crippled his left leg, leaving him immobile. Falling to the ground, the Grey Knight tore off his shoulder guard, using it as a makeshift weapon. "You bunch of soulless monsters are just infuriating," the female knight spat, her voice dripping with disdain. Without hesitation, she swung her sword again, severing the Grey Knight's remaining arm. Yet even with both arms gone, the Grey Knight continued to flail his stumps, his face blank and devoid of emotion, struggling uselessly. Reduced to a pathetic, writhing form, he resembled a grotesque worm squirming on the ground, evoking both pity and disgust. The female knight gazed at him, sighing deeply. She raised her sword high and whispered, "May you find no peace in the light." With a swift motion, her sword descended, a brilliant beam of light falling upon the Grey Knight. In mere moments, his body disintegrated like melting snow, leaving only a pile of bones behind. The female knight flicked her sword, the blood evaporated from the blade in a flash of light. She sheathed her sword and crushed the bones underfoot. Then, she turned and gently lifted the injured Jirunini, carrying her over to Osar. Seeing her gravely wounded comrades, she sighed softly. "Sorry I'm late." She then began to sing a soft hymn. White feathers from the sky floated downward, tenderly caressing their wounds and healing them. At that moment, a small magic circle floated to her side. The female knight glanced at it and smiled. "Yane? Thank goodness you're safe. Wait for me, I'll be there at once." If you are enjoying the novel, please take a minute to leave a review on Novel Updates. Support me on Patreon and gain access to advanced chapters. Check out my other novels. Time Really Not the Demon God's Lacquer Conquering Otherworld starts with a game. Novel notes. 1,217 words. Meanwhile, on another sky bridge, the spear-wielding knight in grey armor was being mercilessly beaten by the giant beast in front of him. There were no tactical nuances or skillful maneuvers involved. It was just a straightforward, one-sided beatdown. His spear couldn't pierce the beast's hide, his speed was no match for its wings, and his techniques were utterly overwhelmed by the beast's reflexes. As for his escape routes, he had none. His only choices were to defeat the beast or die trying. And thus, he died. The beast bit him 17 times in total. First his left hand, then his right, followed by his forearms, upper arms, shoulders, left leg, right leg. Eventually, the knight's head was torn off with the 17th bite. The huge beast was obedient, it had dismembered the knight into exactly 18 pieces as commanded. With its task complete, the huge beast picked up the spear and gracefully flew back to its master, presenting the foe's weapon with a submissive nuzzle. "Good boy." Nox took the spear, petting the beast's head as he examined the weapon. 15% mithril alloy, standard crack unit issue. "Nice find," he remarked, tossing the spear into his magical space before retrieving a crystal larger than his head and offering it to the beast. "Here's your reward." The beast chirped happily, taking the crystal and crunching it down with audible delight. "Every time I see you feeding your summons, I can't decide if you're stingy or generous." Mervant joked. Presently, he was shirtless at the side, receiving treatment. Calidora's healing magic enveloped his body in a soft, bluish-white light, which made him look like he was sitting inside a glowing egg. "All summoners are like this. Our summoned beasts are our lifeblood, so we spare no expense," Nox replied, patting the beast's neck. The beast then transformed into a puff of white smoke and returned to the book strapped to his back. "But I really think you ought to save some money. How long are you going to keep using that worn-out sword? It can't even cut through the elite guard's armor." Spare a thought for your wife too. If I hadn't shown up, you'd all be goners, Nox continued. What are you talking about? Dark Verdict is my clan's most strongest sacred blade. It just hasn't recognized me yet. Mervant sighed. If I could unlock its full power? But you can't, so right now it's just a worn-out sword. Nox shrugged. If I were you, I'd get a decent replacement in the meantime. Maybe, but I'm broke. Mervant shrugged back. Even if I save up, I wouldn't know where to buy a good sword. That's why I said you should save money. Nox sighed. If you're broke, you won't be able to afford it even if you manage to find one. Not necessarily. Mervant grinned. There's always you. I could borrow some from you, right? From me? Nox raised an eyebrow. Just so you know, I charge 9-fold interest. 9? Mervant's lips twitched. Do you have to be so cutthroat? If you don't want to borrow, then save up. Don't expect to mooch off me, Nox retorted. As they bantered, a small magic circle floated toward them. Oh? Yane. Nox brightened up. So you are here too. Are you all right? Need me to get Radiance to pick you up? The magic circle flickered, and Nox's smile froze. Who? There's a black-armored commander? And the commander is being chased and beaten. Shiloh's gone over. Ah? It's not Shiloh. Who? Liu Ji? Who's Liu Ji? An apprentice you've taken in? Who? No, what student is capable of chasing and beating a commander? I don't know either, but he's really chasing the black-armored commander. Yane responded, her expression a mix of confusion and astonishment. The scene before her was surreal. Initially, Liu Ji and the black-armored commander were in a stalemate. Liu Ji couldn't land a hit, while the commander's attacks were ineffective against Liu Ji. But then, Liu Ji had an epiphany. He realized he hadn't landed a single hit. What did this mean? It meant he was lousy. No, that wasn't the point. The important takeaway was that the enemy seemed very afraid of getting hit by Liu Ji. Liu Ji knew that this body of his was powerful, though he wasn't exactly sure how powerful. In any case, Miser had said Liu Ji's transformed body was stronger than his. And while this enemy decked in black appeared way more formidable than the random enemy soldiers, Liu Ji didn't believe he could rival Miser, a former world boss. Thus, Liu Ji had a conjecture. Perhaps a single punch might be fatal for this foe. From that point on, Liu Ji's strategy shifted from fighting a formidable opponent to just let me hit you once. Relentlessly, he pressed forward, swinging wild punches at the commander's face. At first, his foe wasn't afraid of him. After all, Liu Ji's fundamentals were basically naught. In fact, he had previously been on the offense all the way, just that he couldn't get a hit in. But shortly after, Liu Ji found a solution to break the deadlock. His desert manifestation body was extremely flexible. It didn't only allow Liu Ji to regenerate, he could even reform his body as well. Growing new arms or changing his shape was possible, too. Just that, having only spent extended periods of time as a potato and human, Liu Ji wasn't ready for the experience of controlling a 3-headed, 6-limbed body, so he hadn't tried this yet. Now, facing such an exceptional training opportunity, Liu Ji felt he needed to try these tricks. And thus, the circumstances changed. At first, the black-armored commander tried to counterattack, slashing as he retreated and countering Liu Ji countless times. But regardless of how he hacked, Liu Ji would instantly regenerate, continually barraging the commander with 6 uncoordinated fists. 2 fists were manageable, and the commander could read how they would move according to the opponent's posture, but 6 fists. Helpless, the black-armored commander had to abandon counterattacking and focus on escaping. Using his experience in pursuits, he tried to put some distance between himself and Liu Ji, then look for an opportunity to strike back. After all, he couldn't retreat or run away. Even though he knew that his opponent was seemingly indestructible, he could only continue fighting, engaging in what felt like an endless chase. Endless. Or was it? For some reason, the black-armored commander felt Liu Ji's speed increasing. His own dodges were becoming more desperate, and the punches he narrowly avoided seemed to almost scrape the sides of his armor now. Instinctively, he realized that if he kept running, he would eventually be caught. If that were the case, he had no choice but to fight. Bam! The thought hadn't yet fully formed in his mind when he failed to dodge Liu Ji's punch, and his entire head exploded like a firework from the impact of the blow. If you are enjoying the novel, please take a minute to leave a review on Novel Updates. Support me on Patreon and gain access to advanced chapters. Check out my other novels. I'm really not the demon gods lack a conquering otherworld starts with a game. Novel notes. 1076 words. So. I'm late. The female knight eyed the headless corpse on the ground, clearly surprised. Are you telling me he took down a black armored commander by himself? Though hard to believe, it's true, Yane replied, glancing at Liu Ji, who was toying with the new greatsword he had acquired. When I first considered taking him as an apprentice, I thought he was a blank slate, someone who had never seen combat. Now, I realize I underestimated him. Liu Ji swung the greatsword a few times, and whether it was because he found it unwieldy or was simply curious, he bent the blade as if testing its flexibility. To his surprise, the sword snapped in two with a loud crack, startling him. Ooh? Did he just snap the commander's sword in half? The female knight raised an eyebrow. Liu Ji, holding the two broken pieces, looked toward Yane with an innocent expression. Heh, how infuriating, Yane muttered, stroking her chin. Look at him, he's actually puzzled about why the sword broke so easily. Damn, my head hurts. At this moment, Osar, who had been lying nearby, woke up. He sat up, rubbing his forehead, and the first thing he saw was the headless commander, causing him to panic. What the? Why is this here? He shouted in shock but soon realized it was a corpse. He blinked several times, then looked to the side. On seeing the female knight, his face lit up. Ah. Captain. So it was you who came? Yes, I'm sorry for arriving late. You and Jirunini suffered because of it. The female knight sighed. And, although you might think that corpse is my doing, it's actually his. She pointed at Liu Ji, who was discussing something with Yane in incantation. Eh? He? Ah. Osar was taken aback. In truth, the only impression was that Liu Ji could swat a scout to death, then throw up afterward. But now, he had smacked a black-armored commander dead. This was far beyond Osar's expectations. As he stared at Liu Ji, Osar found an inexplicable sense of unease. It kept growing, gnawing at him as if he had forgotten something. Forgotten something. Ah. Osar suddenly recalled. *T. Where are the potatoes? The potatoes are missing. Before the shrine, the black-robed priest sat on the ground, staring blankly into the distance. He could sense that his 3 summoned trump cards had been completely defeated. They had been taken down by a bunch of lowly outsider trash. He absolutely couldn't comprehend it. Those were aces left behind by the prophets. They were the epitome of their strongest warriors, the invincible soldiers of God. Yet, they were just killed off like this? The priest couldn't understand it, so he sat there in a daze, not even noticing a bunch of potatoes scurrying past him. The oracle's words were supposed to be the truth, the power of the divine. This wasn't supposed to happen, it couldn't have happened. If it did, it could only mean he wasn't devout enough. This was a test from God. But why? He had sacrificed all his people, his entire life, dedicating everything to the prophet's plan, following her divine guidance, preparing for the cataclysmic disaster foretold. Why had everything he had prepared for been undone by a bunch of outsiders? Had he done something wrong? No, he had followed the oracle's instructions accordingly, without a single mistake. So where did it all go wrong? If these outsiders destroyed everything, then what would he do when the foretold calamity arrived? Wait a minute. Could these outsiders be the calamity foretold? Ah. Right. It can only be the case. I got it. I understand now. Ha ha ha. He laughed hysterically. So you're the ones meant to destroy the world. Squelch. Who? The priest looked down in bewilderment at the sword protruding from his chest. The blade still bore the paint from the blessings he had applied. He raised his head slightly, seeing the wielder of this sword clearly for the first time. It was a small, tearful Earthwalker recruit, his face twisted in fury, hands trembling not from his first kill but from pure, unadulterated rage. You monster, the young Earthwalker roared, driving the blade deeper into the priest's chest. Thud! The priest collapsed, clutching his wound, staring in disbelief at the young Earthwalker. Why? He murmured. You're supposed to be kin. Kin? Don't make me laugh. Nox approached and crouched beside the priest. Is this how you treat kin? By turning them into restless corpses? It's you? Despicable outsider? The priest got worked up and coughed up a mouthful of blood. Hey, calm down. You'll bleed out before we finish talking, Nox said. Besides, I didn't do much. I just showed him your tower, and then he found his parents. You bastard, the young Earthwalker shouted, tears streaming down his face. Everyone trusted you. The whole city trusted the church. We believed we were fighting to save the world. You? Recalling his parents' fate, the disparity between the heroic sacrifice he had imagined and the brutal reality, the young Earthwalker broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. TSK, look at what you've done, Nox said, turning back to the priest with disdain. You dare call them kin? How hypocritical can you be? No. They were fighting to save the world. I didn't lie. The priest shook his head desperately. Just that the calamity hasn't come yet. I was preparing. Preparing? You call this preparation? Nox shook his head, looking at the priest like he was a hopeless fool. For your so-called preparation, you sacrifice your kin? Why didn't you just lock yourself in the tower and become a breeding stud? No. I must follow the prophecy, the priest shouted, coughing up more blood, but he ignored it. The oracle and God chose me. I must lead the people of this city. To protect this divine miracle. Divine miracle? You mean that giant pitcher plant? Nox glanced at the towering tree above. That thing? Others might not recognize it, but I do. It's an arcane artifact, nothing to do with gods. And I can say for sure, it came from the Sanctum of Arcane Arts. If you are enjoying the novel, please take a minute to leave a review on Novel Updates. Support me on Patreon and gain access to advanced chapters. Check out my other novels. I'm really not the demon gods lacquer conquering otherworld starts with a game. Novel notes. 1004 words. 300 years ago, Swirling Maya City was a bustling trade hub. Heck, you know about that, huh? Back then, the city was vibrant and lively on the surface, but beneath it, darkness lurked. At least it's not as dark as you. Back then, there was a young Earthwalker. Due to his poor family conditions, he was frequently bullied. Every day, he worked hard, but barely got enough to eat and was never warm enough. Poor guy. Is that what you hope I say? No one pitied him. People thrived in the city's false prosperity, ignoring the filthy young Earthwalker begging on the streets. Oh. So your hard work was begging. One day, the young Earthwalker accidentally dirted a merchant's trousers and was dragged into an alley, beaten mercilessly by the merchant's men. The young Earthwalker thought he would die, but in his despair, he met a beautiful girl. A beautiful outsider? At that time, the young Earthwalker didn't know that she was the oracle destined to lead the city to salvation. Salvation? Like what you're doing now. She saved a young Earthwalker. And just like how she saved him, she wanted to save this city. And this world. She foresaw a future calamity and urged the people here to plant the sacred tree in preparation for the future. However, the people didn't understand or believe her. She was just an outsider, they dismissed her words. Yet, the young Earthwalker knew she spoke the truth. Maybe it's true from a certain sense. 300 years ago, 300 years ago, the Sanctum of Arcane Arts was completely annihilated. A 10,000-year-old organization was wiped out. Even the founder's world salvation magic was left to an outsider. I don't know what you are talking about. You don't need to. Continue the story, the one you've embellished and altered countless times. The fairy tale in your memory. The girl gave a speech in the bustling square for a whole day, but no one stopped to listen. They mocked her, threw rotten vegetables at her, staining her beautiful dress. Yet, the stains made her seem even more divine. Sounds like street evangelism. Keep talking, don't look at me like that, I don't owe you money. You wouldn't understand. Only those who saw it would know how divine she was at that moment. The city, rotting in its wealth, couldn't comprehend her. Only I understood her truth, and she was moved by my sincerity. Though I was just a scrawny beggar, she chose me. Who else would she choose? Only you fell for her lies. Just give me a quick death. No, that would be too lame. Keep talking. Do you know her name? Don't tell me you worshipped her without knowing her name. Her name? Of course I do. Until now, I still remember how holy her name was. She told me herself, she was Patricia, an oracle that could receive divine revelations. Patricia? Patricia? Patricius? Oh, him. Ah ha ha. It's him. Ha 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 ha, it's actually him. Ha 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 ha. Why are you laughing? I'm laughing at you. Ha ha ha, you called him a girl? Ha ha ha. Patricius has lived for thousands of years, usually using male bodies. After his daughter was killed by the tyrant, he started using young female bodies. Ha ha ha. Look how he fooled you. I don't know what you are talking about, but you can't deceive me. She personally showed me the calamitous scenes in her prophecy. Cities crumbling, the earth breaking, people displaced, killing machines everywhere. Sounds more like a reflection of a past event rather than a future vision. No. She told us that calamity will come to our homeland. If we don't act, we will all definitely die. I don't deny that. But it looks like what you did only hastened the process. No. It's to save the world. She gave us the sacred tree. It grants our people eternal life. With enough time, I can cultivate endless soldiers. Endless cannon fodder, you mean? Sacred tree? No, I remember what it is. Codenamed Skycrow, Sanctum of Arcane Arts Experiment 5894. Patricius's poor imitation of the Red Moon Demon King, Miser Noravis Cusack. He tried to replicate the spell for an endless army generator within a controllable range. But it's a failed imitation, a monstrous creation. The surface roots only consume, and puppet soldiers need to be baited, modified within the canopy's range, a complete failure. And you? Now I see, the Sanctum of Arcane Arts escaped here long ago. You were their little experiment against the tyrant. At this point, Nox stood up, gazing down at the priest with contempt. Your whole life has been a joke. You've spent it living a lie. And your people, they are dying because of your stupidity. No, no, no. It's not a lie, the black-robed priest howled, blood dribbling out from his mouth and wound. I don't know what you are talking about. All I know is that she chose me. We are going to save the world together. Together? Nox sneered. Then, tell me, where is that old thing now? She's? The priest stuttered. She said she would return. At that time, I must show her the best army. Nox sighed and muttered, truly pathetic. No. No. Don't look at me like that, the priest got worked up and cried out hoarsely. At least she chose me. At least she chose me. Only me. With these words, he used up his last bit of strength. His vision grew darker and darker. In his final moments, just as he was about to enter the darkness, he saw a figure approaching. It was another priest. That grey-robed priest that stayed in Swirling Mire City. If you are enjoying the novel, please take a minute to leave a review on Novel Updates. Support me on Patreon and gain access to advanced chapters. Check out my other novels. I'm really not the demon god's lack of conquering otherworld starts with a game. Novel notes. 1,329 words. Honored guests, I apologize on behalf of my predecessor for his negligence, the grey-robed priest said with a smile, bowing toward Nox. Please allow me to lower these walls for you, but in return, I ask that you refrain from further damaging this place. Hearing this, the small Earthwalker wiped his tears and raised his sword. He had learned the dark truth hidden underground and now wished to burn the monstrous tree to the ground. He could not allow this grey-robed priest to take the black-robed priest's place. However, Nox intervened, snatching the sword from his hand and kicking him to the ground. Your proposal sounds good. I accept, Nox replied with a smile and gestured for him to proceed. Please, go ahead. The grey-robed priest glanced at the defeated, despondent Earthwalker on the ground, then picked up the half-broken staff and softly chanted an incantation. Immediately, invisible waves of energy rippled out. The layers of structures began to move and, in no time, retracted underground. Within seconds, the entire area returned to its original state as if nothing had happened, save for the black-robed priest's corpse lying on the ground. Well, thank you. Nox flashed a smile and nodded at the grey priest. The latter smiled back as well. Crunch. His head was gone. The headless corpse slumped to the ground as a pristine beast appeared behind it, casually spitting out a mixture of flesh, bone fragments, and brain matter. Nox walked over, picked up the staff from the ground, and handed it to the beast beside him. The creature let out a joyful cry and, with a few crunches, devoured the staff. The series of events left the young Earthwalker in a state of shock. He had just thought Nox was about to aid the enemy and abandon him, only to witness him swiftly turn the tables and kill the grey-robed priest. Numbers glanced at the bewildered young Earthwalker, smiling at him before turning his attention to the towering tree above. Well then, it's time to deal with this troublesome piece of magical garbage. he said, looking toward the altar beneath it. And then, he froze. A bunch of potatoes were gathered beneath the shrine, at the spot where Earthwalker conscripts were baited. They were huddled around what could be vaguely described as a human-shaped gelatinous mass, rubbing and nuzzling against it, seemingly enjoying themselves. Nox knew exactly what that gelatinous substance was. It was the maiden from before that was capable of transforming people into puppets, the core essence of the tree. But what were these potatoes doing? To Nox's astonishment, the core's volume appeared to be shrinking, while those potatoes were continuously growing. Their tiny, thin limbs were becoming thicker and longer as if they were absorbing the tree's essence for their own development. Aren't these just potatoes? Damn, while this tree is a rather useless creation despite its high magical rating, it was still a top-tier artifact. It can still be considered a high-effort, low-reward piece of junk. Yet, what exactly are these potatoes? How are they able to absorb the core's essence so easily? Could they be magic constructs too? They don't seem like it, right? Nox pondered for a bit, finally deciding to wait and see what these potatoes were up to first. Liu Ji had a subtle inkling. Just a moment ago, Osa had approached him with a deeply apologetic expression as if he had accidentally burned down Liu Ji's house. Liu Ji was initially alarmed, thinking something terrible had happened. When he asked Yane, he learned that Osa had lost the little potatoes during the battle. Seeing Osa's guilty look, Liu Ji finally understood. It wasn't that Osa thought he had burned down Liu Ji's house, Osa thought he had lost Liu Ji's children. Liu Ji didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Truth be told, he had no idea where those little potato beings had come from, let alone considered them his children. Besides, he had a connection with these little potatoes and could tell they were fine, they were probably hiding somewhere underground. And hearing from Osa that the little potatoes had been actively seeking him out, Liu Ji felt even more at ease. Perhaps if they waited, these little potatoes would show up soon enough. Just then, a dark beast delivered Mervant, Calidora, and Guagua back to their group. Since several of them needed healing and rest, the group decided to wait in place. As they waited, Liu Ji sensed that the little potatoes were up to something. He could feel a certain energy flowing through the blood connection into his body. Liu Ji was also able to tell that most of the energy was staying with the potatoes, with only a small portion reaching him. Actually, Liu Ji had felt this back when the little potatoes ate leftovers, just that the connection was so faint, so he dismissed it as his imagination. Now, however, the sensation was clear and strong. He could tell the little potatoes were consuming something very nourishing. They were having a feast without him, and he wondered if the little potatoes remembered their so-called grandpa. As these thoughts were going through his mind, a sudden tremor shook the area. The surrounding structures retracted, and the area returned to its original state. Without the high walls, the beautiful giant tree became visible again. But this time, it looked somewhat wilted. Liu Ji stared at the tree, and a peculiar emotion came over him. It was as if he were gnawing on the tree himself. While Liu Ji contemplated this odd sensation, Guagua and Jirunini regained consciousness, prompting a wave of cheers from the group. The joy of knowing their comrades were safe after such peril was unparalleled. Though Liu Ji wasn't particularly close to the cat girl Guagua, Jirunini was an essential member of the confused trio, alongside him and Osa. Her recovery brought him great relief. After cheering for a bit, the group shared their recent experiences. Liu Ji couldn't understand most of it, so Yane translated for him. When they discussed how Liu Ji had single-handedly defeated the Black Armored Commander, both Jirunini and Guagua, who had only just regained consciousness, widened their eyes in surprise. Jirunini even walked over to scrutinize Liu Ji closely, patting his shoulder and speaking excitedly. Liu Ji couldn't understand what she was saying, but he felt a little embarrassed just from her tone. In truth, Liu Ji didn't believe he deserved the credit. It was just luck at getting such a unique ability and coincidentally coming across Miser. Still, he decided not to overthink it. Amid the cheerful atmosphere, Liu Ji accepted the praise for his battle, just as everyone else did for their feats. For Liu Ji, this was the first time he truly participated in such a lively gathering, a feeling he hadn't experienced since his past life during university outings with friends. Yane! Liu Ji nudged her during a lull in the conversation. What is it? Yane looked at him. Could you teach me the common language when you have time? Liu Ji asked softly. Of course. Yane nodded. But I won't reduce your spell work assignments, so you'll have to put in extra effort. I'm not the only one with extra classes. Liu Ji grinned. As long as you're willing, Teacher Yane, I won't refuse. Hearing this, Yane paused for a moment, then smiled. All right, then. Just don't regret it later. At the side, the eyes of the female knight gleamed with curiosity as she watched the interaction between Liu Ji and Yane. She smirked slightly. There seems to be something interesting going on between these two. If you are enjoying the novel, please take a minute to leave a review on Novel Updates. Support me on Patreon and gain access to advanced chapters. Check out my other novels. I'm really not the demon god's lacquer conquering otherworld starts with a game. Novel notes. 1,309 words. Liu Ji was at a loss. Just a while ago, his potato younglings returned. But they had changed. When they came scurrying back in the dirt with only the top of their heads exposed, Liu Ji heaved a sigh of relief. Although he knew they were fine, he could only truly rest easy upon personally witnessing them return. But the moment they popped out from the dirt, Liu Ji went numb. Previously with tiny limbs, these little potatolings had actually gotten robust bodies overnight. Though still quite short, standing at no more than 2.5 heads tall, their lower bodies were exceptionally sturdy with bulging chest muscles that made Osar's eyes light up with admiration. Right now, he was gathered together with the potatolings, striking various poses and showing off their muscles. In his words, this was called muscle exchange. Nox was also dumbfounded. Initially, he thought that these potatolings were some sort of backup plan for the tree left behind by the Sanctum of Arcane Arts. Their appearance was too coincidental, and the fact that they had latched onto and drained the core made it seem like they were a last resort. It felt like they were breaking in and absconding with the accumulated energy of 300 years. But it turned out that these little things were brought in from outside by Yane and her companions. Even more surprising was that they were brought by this new guy, who happened to be Yane's apprentice. Among the remaining people in the Arcane Circle, Yane was considered the only one with the potential to ascend to a Grand Arcanist. In the past, countless would queue up hoping to be her apprentice, yet Yane had never found anyone suitable. And now, she was willing to teach this stranger from scratch. Nox guessed that it might have something to do with Yane's teacher's passing. In any case, this fellow was really lucky. And he had talent, too. In the short time Nox was separated from Yane, this fellow had already learned to communicate in incantation. Wait a minute. Why is he using incantation to communicate? Firstly, it surely wasn't to act pretentious, only those fools at the Sanctum did such a thing. Yane's teacher had always been at odds with the Sanctum, so she would surely never adopt such a bad habit, nor would she teach it to her student. So, does it mean he can't communicate without incantation? Perhaps his race's language is too obscure? Speaking of which, what sort of race is this fellow anyway? Nox glanced at the muscled potatolings and suddenly came to a realization. There's no doubt. This guy is a grown-up potato. On this side of the desert, there was actually a race that started as potato-like children. Nox had never heard of such a thing before. The chattering of these little potatoes was also incomprehensible to him. Perhaps this was the language of the new guy. Potato race language. Seeing Nox gawking at Liu Ji as if the latter was a new species, Yane felt a headache coming on. This old summoner was one of the remaining few in the world who knew about the hero summoning magic. Even though Yane knew his character well, she couldn't help but worry that Nox might have special expectations for Liu Ji upon learning he was a summoned hero. After all, not everyone was concerned with the feelings of summoned heroes like her teacher did. People always tended to think from their own perspective first and foremost. Mulling for a bit, Yane finally decided to deal with it for now. Thus, she walked over to Liu Ji and pulled him over to Nox. Liu Ji, this is Mr. Nox, she introduced in incantation. Don't be fooled by his youthful appearance, he's lived for countless years. If you want, you can call him Old Master Nox. Yane then introduced Liu Ji. Mr. Nox, this is Liu Ji, my student. His native language is quite obscure, so we use incantation to communicate with him for now. Oh. I guessed as much. Nice to meet you, young fella. Nox extended his hand to Liu Ji. Ah. Mr. Nox, nice to meet you. Liu Ji quickly extended his hand to shake. Nox smiled and was about to ask Liu Ji more about the potatoes, but Yane dragged Liu Ji away, heading straight to the female knight. At that moment, she was assisting Calidora in treating Mervin's injuries. Although they had already provided emergency treatment earlier, full recovery would take considerable effort for such severe wounds. Nox felt something was amiss yet also reasonable. Scratching his head, he looked at the headless corpse of the black-armored commander and the broken sword lying beside it. His eyes immediately lit up as he picked up the sword and stored it into his magical space before he began stripping the general's armor. This was no ordinary armor, It was a commander's armor worth a lot of money. It was unfortunate that the helmet was shattered, or it could have fetched a high price at an auction. Meanwhile, Yane introduced Liu Ji to the female knight. Her name was Shiloh White, a stray child adopted by the church and later became the captain of the White Knights Vanguard, earning the surname White. After the church's last holy city was destroyed, she escaped and formed a sizable refugee team along the way. Most of them present here had joined Midway and thus called Shiloh captain. Unfortunately, the group later encountered some difficulties. Some died, others left, and a bunch were too afraid to venture into the desert. In the end, only a few of them remained. With fewer people, there were fewer management issues, and Shiloh relaxed her role as captain, treating everyone as equals. She didn't particularly enjoy being the captain, as it exhausted her. Taking on the responsibility was more out of duty. When given the chance to put down that burden, she didn't hesitate. However, everyone was used to calling her captain, so they still did so from time to time. So, you can call her captain, Yane said to Liu Ji. That way, she'll take care of you, and that feeling is just great. Hey! Is it really okay to say that in front of me? Shiloh's lips twitched. I think Captain Shiloh wouldn't mind. Yane spread her hands helplessly. That's not necessarily true. Shiloh then looked at Liu Ji. Liu Ji, is that the correct pronunciation? Yes. Liu Ji nodded. Hello, Captain. You learn quickly. Shiloh grimaced. But Yane, you missed something. Yane raised an eyebrow, a sudden sense of foreboding rising in her heart. Liu Ji, listen carefully. Shiloh chuckled. Yane seems to really like it when you call her teacher. Ah, really? Liu Ji blinked several times and turned to look at Yane. She was flustered and red in the face. It was the first time he had seen Yane look so vulnerable. Almost instinctively, he murmured, "Ah? Teacher? Eek! No. Yane waved her hands, looking uncharacteristically panicked. Looking from Liu Ji to Shiloh, she frowned, turned, and huffed, I'm going up. Don't stay here too long, it's not safe here. We must leave as soon as possible. With that, she quickly scurried toward the spiral stairs leading up. Her reaction could only be described as a hasty retreat. Though Liu Ji was supposed to call her teacher, being directly called out on her desire to be addressed as such was. Yane slapped her forehead 3 times and quickened her pace. If you are enjoying the novel, please take a minute to leave a review on Novel Updates. Support me on Patreon and gain access to advanced chapters. Check out my other novels. I'm really not the demon gods lack a conquering otherworld starts with a game. Novel notes. 1092 words. With the core's essence completely absorbed by the little potatoes, the so-called sacred tree was now nothing more than a husk. It had lost its former glory and stood withered and decayed. According to Nox, if left alone, it wouldn't be long before the tree fell down on its own. However, those monsters in the swamp, originally mutations of the tree's roots, were another matter. These creatures no longer depended on the tree for life. Having adapted to survive independently, they now thrived in the fertile swamp, and it would take more than the tree's demise to eliminate them. Given the proximity to the desert, few would dare venture, so those swamp monsters wouldn't be that much of a problem. It wasn't a matter for their group to solve, nor were they responsible for it. On returning to the city, that scrawny young Earthwalker departed first, determined to reveal the truth about the church to his people. The city's inhabitants needed to understand the truth and realize that no faith could support them forever. Their future now lay in their own hands, even if the population was largely comprised of the elderly and children. The children would grow up and bear the responsibility of their race's future, perhaps even leading their people away from this place. Meanwhile, the rest of the group headed to the tavern to discuss their next move. Now, their party was only missing 2 members to be complete. These last 2 were likely together, but their exact whereabouts were unknown. They might not have arrived yet, or perhaps they never took this route. After some discussion, the group decided to leave information with the tavern owner and continue onward to places where their missing companions might have gone. For the first time, they asked Liu Ji for his opinion. This surprised him, but he confidently stated that he had no idea. After all, he didn't know the missing party members, and he didn't care where they went next. The entire world was new to him, and everywhere he went offered new sights and experiences. Thus, he was more than happy to leave the decision-making to others, treating the journey like an adventure into the unknown. After gathering some local information, the group decided on their next destination. They were in the territory of the Earthwalker race, and if they continued deeper, they would reach the most bustling city, the Earthwalker capital city, the holy city of Karga. It was a long journey from here to Karga, but the distance might increase their chances of reuniting with their lost companions. Additionally, they needed to visit a large city to stock up on supplies and gear, which couldn't be easily found in the wilderness. But before setting out, they needed money. On the way to Karga was the city of Mir, situated near a gorge teeming with monsters. This location attracted many hunters and was likely a good place to earn some dough. Well, that was what intel from 300 years ago suggested, though it was certainly more reliable than Miser's millennia-old maps. However, given that the Sanctum of Arcane Arts had arrived in this land 3 centuries ago, the group couldn't be too optimistic about Mir's current state. Despite their reservations, they had to go, it was their best option for now. But before departing, they decided to wait a few days. Although Nox didn't say it, Yane knew he felt some pity for the young Earthwalker and would likely help him first. It wasn't easy to awaken people accustomed to religious dependency. These Earthwalkers, if stripped of their comforts, might turn against those who removed them. Reclaiming their dignity and aspirations would require significant effort. Even if the brutal truth was presented, many would cover their eyes and ears, trying to shield themselves from change. Transforming this city wouldn't happen overnight, and broadcasting the truth wouldn't be enough. Change demanded persistent effort, and success was not guaranteed. But it had to start somewhere, and for now, that someone was the young Earthwalker. They, as outsiders, could do little, but at least, Nox could still offer some support. Meanwhile, during this period, the group took this opportunity to rest. Due to the recent upheaval, they were cautious about interacting with the locals. They didn't want to provoke a confrontation that could force them to harm the city's inhabitants who were already suffering. After much deliberation, they decided that the abandoned mine from before was the best place to reside temporarily. It was far enough from the city to avoid disturbances, and even if Yane set up a daylight ball outside, it wouldn't bother anyone. The mine had all the necessary facilities for cooking and heating as well, and if they got bored, they could try their luck mining for minerals. While it might not be a moneymaker for these skilled individuals, mining for crystals was akin to a relaxing pastime like fishing. However, these leisure activities had nothing to do with Liu Ji. Yane had been true to her word about doubling his assignments. Now that he could handle basic conversation via incantation, she planned to teach him simple magic. Unlike merely releasing magical energy, true magic required controlling the amount and range of power, shaping it with one's will. In simple terms, it wasn't enough to just conjure fire, one had to shape it into a ball for it to become a fireball. Otherwise, the energy would dissipate before reaching its target. However, considering Liu Ji's current abilities with water and earth elements, Yane decided to start with water magic instead of fire. Water magic represented life and was the most gentle form of magic. Its high-level offensive spells had a broader range than other elements, making it unique. Of course, this had nothing to do with Liu Ji at his current level. Basic water spells were non-lethal and excelled in healing and support. Even if these spells went awry, they wouldn't cause significant harm, making them ideal for a beginner like Liu Ji, who had a history of setting his own head on fire. What Yane didn't realize was just how perfect her choice was for Liu Ji. Because sand, much like water, was adept at flowing and adapting, making this training exceptionally fitting for him. If you are enjoying the novel, please take a minute to leave a review on Novel Updates. Support me on Patreon and gain access to advanced chapters. Check out my other novels. I'm really not the demon gods. Lacquer Conquering Otherworld starts with a game. Novel notes. 1,424 words. The group stayed for about a week. During this week, Liu Ji felt as if he were reliving the final 100 days before the college entrance exams. Never before had he been so grateful for having endured that period of intense study, for without it, he wasn't sure he could have survived this grueling schedule. Fortunately, he made it through, never once complaining about the hardship or fatigue, and he didn't let Yane down. Well, at least, that's what Liu Ji believed. In truth, he hadn't let Yane down. But at the same time, he had greatly disappointed her. After all, their lessons were one-on-one. It wasn't the sort where the teacher hands out a set of worksheets, then goes off to fiddle with their phone. This was intensive, hands-on teaching. As exhausting as it was for Liu Ji, it was even more tiring for Yane. Out of pride and a strict sense of self-discipline, as long as Liu Ji didn't ask for a break, Yane couldn't bring herself to suggest one either. She had hoped countless times that Liu Ji would request a rest, but the latter stubbornly pushed on, forcing her to do the same. By the end of the week, both of them were sporting dark circles under their eyes. Of course, the hard work started to pay off. Besides incantation, Liu Ji had now learned some basic conversational skills in the common language. However, unlike incantation, these new language skills required constant practice to retain, so he hadn't made as much progress as he would have liked in just a week. But when it came to magic, Liu Ji's progress was remarkably fast. In the span of 7 days, he had grasped 7 different spells. While these were all basic water spells, and some were merely variants of each other, this achievement was still something to be proud of. These spells were primarily for practice and had limited practical applications. Mainly, they could be used for washing stuff or temporarily soothing wounds. However, during this process, Liu Ji learned something essential, extending his will to control fluids. This was the foundation of water magic, and he spent the first 3 days focused solely on this. In fact, most people would take much longer to grasp these concepts, usually weeks or even months. Liu Ji's rapid mastery wasn't due to extraordinary talent but rather his unique ability to transform into a water elemental spirit. Practicing in this form made the process significantly more efficient than for the average person. Challenges that others struggled with were almost non-existent for Liu Ji in his water elemental form, and by following Yan's instructions, he easily picked things up. Guogui, who had been at the side listening in without understanding, found this hard to accept and vehemently remonstrated. She had long resigned herself to struggling with incantation, but learning to control water element had taken her 3 months, while Liu Ji managed it in just 3 days. This imbalance left her feeling disheartened, and she sulked in the corner. Osa and Jirunini tried to comfort her, assuring Guogui she wasn't alone in her struggle since they couldn't grasp the concepts either. Of course, these two had no intention of trying to learn it. Meanwhile, Mervant and Calidora spent the week enjoying their downtime, often venturing into the mine to dig. However, they never seemed to bring back much, raising suspicions about what they were actually doing down there. In contrast, Shilo, who took a different route into the mine, was genuinely there to dig. Every day, she hauled out 2 or 3 carts of high-quality crystals. By the end of the week, she had amassed a substantial haul. In terms of their goal to earn money, Shilo had likely already achieved her objective while the group had yet to reach the next city. But looking at her luxurious mithril armor, it was clear that from the beginning, her standards for earning money were on a different level entirely. As for Nox, this week was particularly challenging. As he had anticipated, the city had fallen into decay for far too long, and rousing the elderly was almost impossible. As for the children, hope lay only in those of a similar age to young Chick. Only when they held power might the city's situation improve. Nox couldn't stay forever. In 1 week, there wasn't much he could help Chick with. He could only help Chick select some personnel to establish a basic team, teach him some staff, and leave behind some materials to learn from. Beyond that, the rest would be up to Chick himself. After he was done, Nox returned to the mine to join the others for a meal and presented the maps he had gathered from the city. Then, the next day, he left a letter for young Chick and departed with the group. Their next destination was the hunting haven of Mir City. On a cliff at the edge of the desert, a squad of 12 had made it all the way up. Staring ahead at the lush, verdant forest that lay before them, they paused, exchanging no words as they spread out in silence. Then, without any hesitation, they began to clear the grass, tracing an intricate pattern into the earth. Their movements were synchronized, almost as if they were a single entity, and it wasn't long before an elaborate and ornate magic circle emerged on the ground. Next, one of the warriors drew a blade across his throat. His eyes rolled back as he collapsed to the ground, his blood flowing freely from his neck and seeping into the grooves of the array. The lines of the magic circle began to fill with his blood, yet it was clear that just this one sacrifice was insufficient. The other warrior turned to look at one of the shield guards. They exchanged a brief look before the shield guard cast aside his shield, removed his chest plate, and offered his neck. Without a moment's hesitation, the warrior swung his axe, severing the shield guard's head in a single stroke. Blood sprayed into the circle, further saturating its intricate patterns. Yet still, the lines appeared faint. A scout stepped forward, his curved dagger already poised at his own throat. He dropped to his knees, letting his life's blood drain into the thirsty magic circle. Finally, the magic circle seemed satiated, its crimson lines glowing with an unearthly light. 2 mags and 2 priests stepped forward to the 4 corners of the circle, lifting their staffs high as they began to chant in incantation. Torrential magic surged from their bodies, far beyond the norms of any spell they had cast before. A luminous white light began to coalesce within the circle, growing steadily larger. But as the light expanded, so too did its demand for power. The magic power from the mags and priests were drained at a terrifying speed. The priests, who had less magic to offer, visibly paled and started bleeding from their noses. Soon, blood dripped from their eyes, then ears, until finally, with a dreadful pop, blood erupted from their 7 orifices, and they crumpled to the ground, unconscious. The remaining mags felt the pressure intensify, and it wasn't long before they succumbed to the same fate. Even in death, the circle continued to draw the last vestiges of magic from their bodies, draining every drop it could find. When the light reached its zenith, a figure emerged from within. It was a woman, clad in a splendid white robe, a pristine cape flowing behind her. Her long, dark hair cascaded down her back, giving her an air of elegance and intellect. Stepping out of the light, she surveyed the corpses and the few survivors who remained. With a flick of her wrist, the 12 squad members exploded, their bodies dissolving into pools of blood that flowed back into the circle's patterns. Ah, the king's intuition was right. There's truly more to this desert than meets the eye. She mused softly, stepping toward the forest. Behind her, the light of the magic circle glowed brighter, accompanied by a sound that resonated through the air, a rhythmic marching, as if a battalion was assembling from the depths of the magic circle. If you are enjoying the novel, please take a minute to leave a review on Novel Updates. Support me on Patreon and gain access to advanced chapters. Check out my other novels. I'm really not the demon gods lacquer conquering otherworld starts with a game. Novel notes. 1,154 words. With Nox around, leaving the swamp was far more convenient than when they had first arrived. No longer did Mervant have to endure the indignity of pulling a sled through the muck. Instead, the group rode comfortably atop the enormous white beast, enjoying the scenery as it soared effortlessly in the direction of their next destination. Everyone was at ease. Except for Liu Ji. Since the small Pototolings had become muscled, they had grown to 2 or 3 times their previous size. The basket that had once easily contained them now barely held the majority, with 2 outside. Liu Ji had no choice but to cradle one under each arm, resembling a farmer who had just returned from the market with 2 oversized goods. This left him feeling quite awkward. Riding atop a magical beast and flying over an otherworldly landscape should have been exhilarating, but the cumbersome load on his back and arms meant he had to focus intently on maintaining his balance, leaving little room to appreciate the view. Yane, who was in front chatting with their other companions, noticed his discomfort and so turned back to ask, "Hey, so you do get airsick?" "Airsick?" "No, not really," Liu Ji replied, embarrassed. "I'm just worried about falling off." "Ah? Is that so?" Yane leaned back suddenly, resting against him. Liu Ji got a scare. He still had a basket of potatoes strapped to his back and no one behind. If she leaned against him, he might tumble out. "Ooh?" Liu Ji turned and looked behind him. There was clearly nothing, yet he felt something soft and unseen supporting his back like an invisible cushion. "See, you aren't going to fall," Yane reassured him. "With old man Nox handling the beast, you're perfectly safe." Liu Ji shifted his body to the left and right, realizing he was rather stable on the beast's back. "Ah. I guess you're right." "Yes, so don't worry and just relax," Yane said. I'll try." Liu Ji nodded, though relaxing was easier said than done, given their high altitude and sheer openness of the skies around them. Still, he thought perhaps looking forward might help distract him from the height. With that thought, Liu Ji turned his head back to the front, and then he froze. Yane was reclining, her head tilted backward. It was nearly touching Liu Ji's chin. Liu Ji could even catch a faint scent of floral soap from her hair. Yane noticed Liu Ji's silence, glanced up at him, and saw the latter's face was flushed red, ears burning with embarrassment. Realizing the situation, she quickly straightened up, awkwardly scratching her cheek. At the front, Shiloh glanced back with a knowing smile. "What? Are you so pleased to have gotten all that money?" Nox, who was at the head of the beast, turned and asked her. "If I could find money on the back of your beast, wouldn't you claim it on the spot?" Shiloh teased. "Don't say it like that, am I such a stingy person?" "At least I'd give you a fee out of gratitude," Nox grumbled. "Yeah, right." Shiloh chuckled. "This is a magical beast, not some air taxi where you can find spare change. Stop dreaming." As their banter continued, Mervant watched from the back, his empty wallet weighing on his mind. Perhaps Nox was right and he really needed to pull together some money. If his sword wasn't up to par, it was as good as a blunt blade. No matter how well crafted, a weapon he couldn't wield properly was useless. Besides the issue of the sword, a decent set of armor might have spared him from being so easily battered in his last fight. Not to mention taking the others into consideration. He glanced at Calidora, who leaned against his back, her arms wrapped around his waist. Healing magic required potions and materials for maximum effectiveness. Previously, Calidora had been using her own magic to heal them, which was both slow and draining for her. Whether for his own sake or hers, they needed to purchase essential supplies. Calidora also needed a proper staff. Her previous one was damaged during their last skirmish, and she had been using an old staff from her student days ever since, which severely limited her capabilities. Hope that city is as promising as it sounds, Mervant mused. He was counting on earning enough to equip himself properly there. Osa and Girunini harbored similar hopes, although their motivations differed from Mervant. They weren't motivated by money but in the creatures themselves. Mighty beasts were treasure troves of rare materials, their flesh and bones were invaluable to warriors seeking to temper their bodies. For Giruni, the blood of beasts was a direct source of power. Although she hadn't expressed it, the defeat in their last encounter still rankled her, fueling her determination to grow stronger. With these thoughts driving them, the group rode the majestic white beast, gliding steadily over the sprawling swamp below. As they neared the other end of the swamp, they noticed the buildings below seemed to improve in condition. There were many bridges and campgrounds leading to the swirling Maya city on both sides. Although the bridges here were mostly damaged, their conditions were markedly better than those they had crossed on their journey to the city. Some ruins even had intact roofs, suitable for makeshift camps. As they approached the edge of the swamp, they saw identical signs posted along the ruins, cautioning against venturing into the swamp. This was a good sign. It indicated that there were settlements nearby or perhaps even thriving communities. Signs like these were placed to protect unwary travelers from stumbling into danger. And when the group finally emerged from the swamp and caught sight of a massive earthen mound, it confirmed what they hoped: civilization was near. These sort of earthen mounds existed on the other side of the world as well. The Earthwalkers built these shaded structures above ground whenever they needed to interact or trade with other surface-dwelling races. As they neared one of the mounds, Nox instructed the beast to hover midair before leaping down to investigate the situation while the rest waited with bated breaths. When Nox returned, the tension in the air dissipated. According to the Earthwalkers below, the city of Mir was still thriving and renowned for its monster hunting industry, just as it had been in the past. In fact, in recent years, both the number of hunting parties and yield from hunts had increased steadily. If the group wanted to try their luck and earn some money, now was the perfect time to do so. If you are enjoying the novel, please take a minute to leave a review on Novel Updates. Support me on Patreon and gain access to advanced chapters. Check out my other novels. I'm really not the demon god's lack of conquering otherworld starts with a game. Novel notes. 1,219 words. Though it was called a city, Mir felt more like an enormous adventurer's camp than a metropolis. There was no luxurious lord's mansion, only a bustling adventurers' guild teeming with people. There were no elegant shopping streets, only lively markets filled with an array of hunting gear. There were no banks offering loans or mortgages, only exchanges that dealt in monster materials and merchant caravans stocking up on supplies. Walking through the streets, Liu Ji found himself surrounded by adventurers and hunters of all races and appearances, each clad in armor and armed to the teeth. It was like wandering through the main city of an MMORPG. Because of this, their group barely attracted any attention as they entered Mir. Here, they noticed that the races in this part of the world weren't much different from those on the other side of the desert. Other than a few unfamiliar beings, most of the races here had counterparts on the other side of the desert. Thinking about it made sense. Although a desert separated the two sides, it had merely been an ordinary desert before the coming of Misa. In this world where magic existed, a single seaberry tree could sustain a village's water supply. Thus, it was unlikely that a desert could divide a world into two distinct halves. Thousands of years ago, these two lands were likely one. Captain, should we find a place to stay first or jump right into hunting? Osa asked Shiloh. I've told you already, stop calling me Captain, Shiloh said with a helpless smile. We should decide as a group. I think we should rest for a day. Just look at those two, suggested Calidora, pointing at Liu Ji and Yane, who were lagging behind. The two of them, each with dark circles under their eyes, had been yawning non-stop since they landed. You've got a point, let's find an inn first, Nox said, stopping in front of a nearby inn. I think this one looks good. Everyone looked up. The place was in shambles, and the signboard was on the verge of falling off. Wooden spears holding up were covered with repair patches, and cobwebs hung from the key rack at the front desk. The sole employee was slumped over the counter, fast asleep. Come on, old man, do we really need to be this cheap? Mervant asked, his cheek slightly twitching. How can you even suggest this place? Hey, what's wrong with this? Even the most rundown place will look new after I work my magic. Right, Shiloh? Nox said confidently. No way, not this time. We've been roughing it out for too long. Shiloh shook her head vehemently. Let's find somewhere comfortable so everyone can get a good night's sleep. Really? Well, if you insist, Knox considered, squinting down the street. He looked about silently for several minutes before abruptly striding toward a different location. The others, momentarily bewildered, hurried to follow him. Then, they found themselves before another inn. This new inn was a marked improvement over the first one. The exterior was clean, the decor well kept, the sign polished to a shine, and a lovely, cheerful receptionist greeting them at the front desk. Just that. This inn was tucked away in a remote corner. To find it, the group had to take several turns at the main street, where it stood as a solitary establishment among the back walls of other buildings. It seemed dubious. Adding to their doubts were the suggestive silhouettes painted on all the directional signs leading to the place, and the inn sign itself was adorned with an array of brightly colored dried flowers. Something about it felt off. The group hid behind a corner in front of the inn, peeking out surreptitiously. As for why they were hiding, none of them could say. In any case, this was Knox's idea. Old man, are you sure this is an inn and not, Mervyn asked, skeptically. Of course, I'm sure, Knox replied with a sideways glance. If this were a place like that, the desk would be staffed by a madam or a line of girls, not just one pretty young lady. This is a classic bait-and-switch scam. Having said that, Knox sauntered inside. Oh, so it's a scam. Ah. Mervyn's expression turned into one of aghast. He watched as Knox approached the receptionist with a bashful smile and hands clasped behind his back. Knox nonchalantly flashed the luxurious bracelet on his wrist, a not-so-subtle hint of his wealth. The receptionist's eyes immediately lit up with interest, and she walked out from behind the counter to flirt with Knox. Knox played along, acting coy. Being a Miffy, Knox was naturally short, and with his unknown method of preserving his youthful looks, he could easily pass for an awkward young boy. After a bit of playful banter, the woman attempted to lead Knox upstairs. Knox feigned reluctance, and as they jostled, the receptionist stumbled and fell, pulling Knox down with her. Knox's right hand ended up resting on her chest, and she let out a theatrical scream. In an instant, a group of muscle-bound men charged out from the back, blocking the entrance. At that moment, the group could see the crafty smile on Knox's face, betraying his true nature as a cunning old miser. And then, they started beating Knox up. The brawny thugs of this hunter's haven were formidable opponents. Unfortunately for them, they were outmatched this time. Knox dissipated into a mist as the blows landed. Meanwhile, his real self had already slipped outside. He waved his hands and called out, "Guys, I'm being beaten up. Get in here and save me, with your bare hands." Hearing this, the thugs hesitated, surprised by the prospect of Knox having backup. The party was also caught off guard, not by the need to rescue Knox but by his insistence on doing so barehanded. Still, they were roughly able to guess the reason. It was unwise to kill when on someone else's turf. Yet, the absurdity of the situation left them momentarily dumbfounded. When Knox's plea for help went unanswered for several seconds, the thugs jumped to conclusions. "Ha! Brothers, he's bluffing. Get him!" They lunged at Knox. What do we do?" Mervyn looked to Shiloh. "What else?" Osa interjected before Shiloh could respond. "It's a brawl. Let's go." With that, he charged forward, with Liu Ji following suit. Liu Ji couldn't understand a word, but seeing a comrade being attacked was enough. His initial hesitation stemmed from waiting for tactical orders, but with Osa charging in, he followed without a second thought. Unexpectedly, Liu Ji's bunch of little potatolings joined the fray too. On top of that, they moved faster than Osa, sprinting full tilt. In the blink of an eye, they leaped from their basket, burrowed underground, and emerged beside the thugs. One potato raised its fist. With a single punch, it sent a thug flying over 5 meters away, where his head smacked against a pillar, and he passed out cold. If you are enjoying the novel, please take a minute to leave a review on Novel Updates. Support me on Patreon and gain access to advanced chapters. Check out my other novels. I'm really not the demon gods lacquer conquering otherworld starts with a game. Novel notes. 1,127 words. The formidable men who ran the infamous scam operation in Mir for years never imagined they'd be brought down by a bunch of potatoes. Liu Ji was at a loss seeing the sprawled unconscious bodies of these thugs while the triumphant muscled pototolings now surrounded him. He had initially intended to join in and help with the fight, but before he could even make a move, his potato squad had already taken down the bunch of thugs. Those little guys moved with such efficiency, speed, and coordination, leaving Liu Ji and Osa standing on the sidelines and simply watching as the thugs were taken down one punch at a time. Now, the Potatolings clustered around Liu Ji, clamoring for praise and rewards. Besides Grandpa, they had even picked up some new words, such as hungry and food. Left with no choice, Liu Ji could only nod and promise, all right. I'll make you all some food as soon as we find a kitchen. While he was pandering to the eager Potatolings, Nox emerged from the inn, dragging the pretty receptionist in one hand and a scrawny old man in the other. Both were tightly bound with ropes, likely the final members of this criminal gang. Osa approached and asked, Mr. Nox, what should we do with them? Hand them over to the city guard. The pair's eyes lit up with hope on hearing Osa's suggestion. Unfortunately for them, Nox's sardonic grin quickly dashed their expectations. No, that's not an option. A place like this that runs a shady operation targeting outsiders is definitely protected by someone higher up, Nox said, tossing them aside. My suggestion is to dig a hole and bury them. The duo's eyes widened in horror, but with their mouths gagged, they could only whimper and shake their heads in protest. That might not be a good idea, Calidora chimed in as she stepped outside. We don't know this place well enough to start racking up a body count. True, though it doesn't count if no one finds out. And it would be much more effective if you were to handle it, Nox admitted with a sly smile. Besides, we could use some extra help around the inn. Don't you think so? Well, yeah, Calidora replied, crouching down beside the tied-up pair. She lifted the receptionist's face, letting the latter's eyes meet her own that were glowing with a strange light. The once panicked woman suddenly relaxed, her eyes growing vacant. The old man next to her, realizing what was happening, began struggling desperately. Calidora calmly pulled him over and slapped him hard across the face. He immediately froze, staring at the gentle-looking young woman with newfound fear and confusion. Don't move, all right? Calidora said with a sweet smile. This is only temporary, but if you don't cooperate, I won't hesitate to follow through on Nox's idea. The old man hesitated, visibly frightened, before finally meeting her gaze. There, that's better, Calidora murmured softly, her eyes glowing once more. The old man's expression shifted to the same vacant stare. All right, they are set. You can untie them now, Calidora announced with a sigh of relief. I'll go handle the one still unconscious. Watching Calidora's back as she entered the inn, Nox turned to Mervant while stroking his chin. Who knew your girlfriend had such a wicked side? You're the one who dragged us into this sketchy place, Mervant shot back, his lips twitching. Captain told you to find a decent place, and you pick a place like this? Is it even safe to stay here? Heck, you don't get it, Nox said, waving his hand dismissively. These places are perfect. They're never really used, so everything inside is brand new. You'll see once we get inside. With that, he headed into the inn. Mervant shrugged and gestured for the others to follow, then joined Calidora in dealing with the unconscious thugs. On entering the inn, the group realized that what Nox said had been absolutely right. The furnishings were practically new, as if they had never been touched. Besides that, the inn was comprehensively equipped. It resembled a legitimate inn rather than a scam operation. According to Nox, even if the establishment was protected by some higher-up, they couldn't operate without maintaining appearances. Everything had to be in order to pass inspections, and should they decide to go straight, they could sell the place off as a legitimate business. Of course, that said, Nox's primary reason for choosing this place was the fact they could stay here for free. Despite his exhaustion, Liu Ji was kept busy by the chattering potatoes around him. After entering the establishment, he went in search of the kitchen to prepare some soup for them. While looking for the kitchen, he ran into Calidora, who had also brought the newly reformed, magically, scam crew. Seeing how tired Liu Ji was, Calidora instructed two of the thugs to handle the cooking instead. Before long, everyone had their rooms sorted out. Osa and Liu Ji shared one, while Mervant and Calidora took another. Guagua and Yane paired up, Jirunini and Shilo shared a room, while Nox had one to himself. Once the cooking was done and the potatoes fed, Liu Ji retired to his room, collapsing onto the bed. He was so tired that he fell asleep without even changing his clothes. Osa entered, and seeing Liu Ji sleeping this way, pulled a blanket over him. In the room next door, Yane was in a similar state. Returning to the room, she undressed, performed a quick cleansing spell, changed into clean pajamas, and fell asleep. Her seamless process left Guagua, who didn't know magic, feeling envious. Mervant and Calidora, too, decided to rest right away. Even though they finally had some privacy, the two were probably too tired. Nox, Shiloh, Jirunini, and Osar, however, had no intention of resting just yet. With the afternoon still ahead of them, they planned to make the most of it. So, should we check out the guild, get a feel for things, or maybe take on a quick job? Nox asked. I'm up for anything, Osar replied with a grin. Just tell me where to go. I'll follow Captain's lead, Jirunini said, looking toward Shiloh. If it's up to me, I'd say let's visit the guild first, Shiloh suggested. If there's a quick job we can finish today, we could give it a shot and see what this so-called hunting ground has to offer. If you are enjoying the novel, please take a minute to leave a review on Novel Updates. Support me on Patreon and gain access to advanced chapters. Check out my other novels. I'm really not the demon god's lack of conquering otherworld starts with a game. Novel notes. 1009 words. In the bustling Hunters Guild of Mir, waiters carrying trays laden with beer, stew, and bread weaved through the crowd from the hall to the kitchen. Hunters of all sorts gathered in the hall, drinking, eating, laughing, and making a ruckus. At the edge of the hall, a large notice board displayed various requests and bounties. Shiloh stopped in front of the board, glancing at a few of the postings, and frowned. Strange, why are the rewards so low? Of course they're low. In such a lively guild, the tasks left on the board are mostly the undesirable ones, Nox said, his fingers interlaced behind his head in a relaxed manner. Stop staring at it, or you'll be mistaken for a newbie. Come on, let's find a place to sit. Oh, all right. I'm a bit hungry anyway, Shiloh replied, turning her attention from the board and instinctively looking for Osar and Jirunini. She quickly spotted them already seated, with Osar laughing and drinking with a group of hunters as if they were old friends. Heh, look at him, he's a natural at this. Nox chuckled before going over and taking a seat himself. After exchanging a couple of sentences, Nox was making merry with the bunch and clinking beer mugs with them. Ha, and aren't you proficient at it yourself, muttered Shiloh. Shiloh didn't have such prior experience herself, nor was she used to freeloading off others, so she flagged down a server and ordered some food and drinks before joining Osar and Nox. Initially, the man she took a seat beside looked annoyed at having an armored stranger barge in. But when Shiloh removed her helmet and let her hair down, the man's eyes lit up. Any annoyance vanished as he placed a beer in front of Shiloh. A new face, huh? This one's on me, he said heartily. Ah, thanks. Shiloh replied, slightly flustered, instinctively accepted it, then quickly said, I ordered some too. I'll get you a drink too once mine arrives. Ha! No need for such formalities here, miss. Cheers! The hunter clinked his mug with hers and took a big gulp. Shiloh, feeling a bit out of her element, hesitated before taking a large swig from her mug. Fat. Nox, watching her awkwardness, couldn't help but guffaw. Shiloh swallowed her beer with difficulty and glanced at Nox in puzzlement. Ha ha, miss, you're a good sport. The hunter laughed, patting Shiloh on the back. Just as things were getting lively, an elderly bespectacled man carrying a stack of rough parchment stepped up to the hall central platform. The boisterous hall fell silent as everyone turned their attention to the old man. Curious, Shiloh looked toward Nox, who leaned in and whispered, listen carefully. Fresh opportunities are coming. As soon as Nox said that, the elderly man raised the papers and read from the first one, Hunting Commission, 8 intact black wolf pelts. Reward, 8,800 karga. Additional materials can be kept. Woo! Some polite cheers came from the crowd, although no one seemed particularly interested. After a few moments, a small, modestly equipped team stood up. Their leader shouted, we'll take it, Master Luo. Catch! The elderly man called Master Luo flicked the paper into the air, and it landed precisely in the team leader's hand. Come back safely. Yes, the team members acknowledged and sat down. Evidently, they weren't in a rush to leave. They still had food to finish, and hunters loved sticking around for the spectacle of task announcements, even if they weren't planning to take any. Well then, next, Master Luo continued. Hunting Commission, Hunter Unicorn Bear. Paws must be intact. Reward, 12,600 karga. Additional rewards will be paid based on condition. Capture alive for double reward. No poison to be used. The hall buzzed with excitement at the higher stakes and rewards. 3 teams expressed interests, and after verifying their credentials, a lot drawing was held to determine the winner. The winning team celebrated, ordering drinks for the team that didn't clinch it as a gesture of camaraderie. This place has a great atmosphere, Jirunini remarked. I've never seen such a lively hunters guild back home. Well, things are tougher there. People are always on edge, Osa replied with a shrug. Master Luo continued announcing a few more hunting commissions, similar in nature, and they were quickly snapped up by various teams. Seeing no reaction from Nox all this while, Osa nudged him and whispered, "Hey old Master Nox, what kind of job are we going for?" "We're going for the lucrative ones, of course." Nox smiled. "You know that the good stuff comes at the back. Just be patient." "While that might be so, I remember that we said we'd start with something simple to get a feel for things." Osa scratched his head. While they were conversing, Master Luo spoke once more. "The next task is a bit more challenging. Collection request, 10 mature shadow mushrooms, uprooted intact. Reward, 10 gold karga. Additional mushrooms will be paid 1 gold karga each. Maximum payment of 20 gold karga." The hall erupted with cheers. 1 gold karga was equivalent to 10,000 karga. The total potential reward of 200,000 karga was a huge incentive, especially for a collection task that could avoid direct combat with beasts if handled skillfully. 8 teams immediately expressed interest. After credential checks, only 4 teams remained for the draw. Despite the excitement, Osa couldn't shake his concern. "Old Master Nox, this isn't good. They're verifying credentials before drawing lots. We're new here and have no record. What do we do?" "Hey, what are you fretting for?" Nox remarked nonchalantly. "We'll get a job. Just watch." Seeing Nox's confidence, Osa could only scratch his head. For some reason, he didn't have a very good feeling. If you are enjoying the novel, please take a minute to leave a review on Novel Updates. Support me on Patreon and gain access to advanced chapters. Check out my other novels. I'm really not the demon god's lacquer conquering otherworld starts with a game. Novel notes. 1,155 words. As time went by, the requests handed out by Master Luo became increasingly difficult, with rewards growing correspondingly. At one point, a task offering over 100 gold karga appeared. Though Osa and the others weren't entirely sure about the purchasing power of karga in this world, they could tell it was a significant sum just by the excitement of the seasoned hunters who won the draw. Such an experienced team wouldn't be thrilled over a small amount. Yet, even with these lucrative rewards, Nox remained unfazed. He didn't so much as twitch an eyebrow. The hunters drinking at the same table assumed Nox and gang were simply there to enjoy the meal and the lively atmosphere much like themselves, with no intention of taking on a job. However, both Osa and Shilo knew Nox better than that. There was no way Nox would let a good opportunity go by. As the stack of requests in Master Luo's hand grew thinner and thinner, Osa noticed that Nox was finally starting to sit up a little straighter. Hunt and capture an earth-feathered wyvern. Reward, 200 gold karga. 2 teams expressed their interest. Hunt a mistveil wyvern. Body must be mostly intact. Reward, 220 gold karga. 330 gold karga if captured alive. 1 team expressed interest. Master Luo scanned the room, then picked up a new sheet and announced, "Hunt a flame-scaled great wyvern. Body must be mostly intact. Reward, 1,000. If captured alive, 3 times the reward." Immediately, the hall erupted in cheers. A total payout of 3,000 gold karga, this was a major job. But despite the noise and excitement, no one stepped forward. A flame-scaled great wyvern? This was a colossal beast with a wingspan of over 100 meters. Capturing it alive? Most teams here wouldn't even dare face it, let alone attempt to bring it down. Only the top hunting teams would dare take this on, but I don't think any of them are in the city right now. Muttered the veteran hunter next to Osa. Hearing this, Osa had a bad feeling. Sure enough, as he turned over, he saw Nox's eyes gleaming with interest as the latter slowly raised a hand, about to volunteer. Just then, a voice sounded from just beyond the hall. "Old Luo. Ha ha, was this job reserved just for me?" A broad-shouldered figure pushed through the door, his voice booming. He was alone, wearing no armor, his muscular torso bare, with scars from past battles crisscrossing his skin. He wore loose pants and carried a ridiculously large sword strapped to his back. Behind him, a group of guild workers were busy heaving a giant, unconscious tortoise. Following that, a shout came from outside. Hunt King Bumigake has successfully captured a dragonjaw tortoise. 56.7 meters long. Body intact. A perfect mission. The entire hall fell silent, only to burst into cheers moments later. Everyone stood up, chanting, "Hunt King! Hunt King!" Osa and gang didn't fully understand what was happening, but they followed the crowd and joined in the cheering. While cheering, Osa leaned over to a nearby hunter and asked softly, "Hey, brother, we're new here. Could you tell us who this Hun King is?" "What? You don't know the Hun King?" "You've asked the right person." The hunter immediately puffed out his chest, eager to share his knowledge. "Back in the day, I went on a mission with him. Even then, I knew he was something special." The hunter then launched into a detailed story, filled with embellishments about a supposedly ordinary mission that became legendary simply because the Hun King was involved. Osa listened patiently, knowing that if he let the man talk long enough, he'd eventually get to the useful details. In short, there was an annual hunting competition held in Mir, where teams of up to 12 competed. The Hun King had earned his title by winning this competition 10 years in a row while always hunting alone. His solo victories over well-equipped teams had earned him the respect and adoration of the entire city. Osa glanced at Nox, who didn't seem pleased. Nox had been ready to offer his services just moments before, but the job had been intercepted. Master Luo, too, didn't look entirely happy. With a frown, he asked, "Bumigake, are you sure you want to take this job?" "Yeah, I'm sure," Bumigake replied without hesitation. "I need to remind you, according to the rules, a hunting team can only take on one job at a time," Master Luo said. "Are you really sure?" "Of course. Why not? You saw it yourself." "I've completed my last job," said Bumigake, smiling confidently. Well then, just don't regret it." Master Luo sighed and, with a flick of his hand, sent the job request flying into Bumigake's grasp. "Regret it? Not a chance." Bumigake began, but then his smile froze. He noticed that Master Luo still held another job sheet. Master Luo saw the realization down on Bumigake and shrugged. "I reminded you." So that's what this is about." Bumigake rubbed his forehead. "I miscalculated. Rules are rules. You've taken that job, so focus on it," Master Luo said, taking a deep breath before reading out the final task. "Hunting commission. Hunt the Blackhorn Sky Wyvern. Body must be mostly intact. Reward, 1,500 gold karga. 5,000 gold karga if captured alive." This time, the crowd was much more subdued. 50 million karga was a truly tempting fortune. But no one dared to take the job. With the Hun King already committed to another job, there was no top-tier hunting team left in the city. Such a valuable job, left unclaimed, was a somewhat embarrassing situation for the Mir City Hunters Guild. Master Luo, apparently anticipating this, sighed and asked half-heartedly, "A job with a potential payout of 5,000 gold karga. Anyone brave enough to take it on?" Silence. Hunters exchanged uneasy glances, many simply shrugging in resignation. Bumigake stood there, job sheet in hand, shaking his head with a wry smile. He cursed his impulsiveness, lamenting that his current job, with its 3,000 gold karga reward, seemed far less appealing. "All right, I'll ask one final time. Anyone brave enough to take on this job?" Master Luo called out, more out of obligation than any real expectation of a response. But then, a voice rang out from the corner of the hall. "Yes. I'll take this job." Everyone turned in surprise to see a small man, barely 4 feet tall, standing on a table. His hand rested on the face of a large cat beside him, and he waved the other hand with a broad, confident grin. If you are enjoying the novel, please take a minute to leave a review on Novel Updates. Support me on Patreon and gain access to advanced chapters. Check out my other novels. I'm really not the demon god's lacquer. Conquering Otherworld starts with a game. Novel notes. 1,353 words. Liu Ji awoke from his slumber. After days of intense study, his mind was filled to the brim with spells and words in the common tongue, so much so that even his dreams consisted of Yane's teaching lessons. Even though he had a deep sleep, he still felt a little groggy and disoriented upon waking up. Maybe I should just turn into a potato and sleep, thought Liu Ji to himself. The only issue with that was that he might end up sleeping for days on end if he did turn into a potato. Glancing out the window, he saw that it was probably early in morning. His stomach growled, indicating it was the perfect time to get up and find some breakfast. But as Liu Ji sat up, he was stunned by the sight before him. All he saw was the bunch of muscled pototolings gathering around his bed, much like the 7 dwarfs watching Snow White sleep on their beds. They were gazing at him with pitiful eyes. As soon as Liu Ji got up, they all opened their mouths in unison. Liu Ji's eyes widened. And in the next moment, the bunch of potatoes were shouting, "Grandpa! Hungry! Food! I knew it!" Liu Ji sighed, palming his forehead. He now felt grateful that Nox had chosen this inn, where they could stay for free. Otherwise, with no money to his name, these little things would have driven him into debt just from their food consumption alone. Liu Ji got out of bed, coddling the potatoes as he did so. He caught a glimpse of the other bed in the room and found it odd. Osa was supposed to share this room with him, but the other bed looked like it hadn't been slept in at all. Even if Osa was an early riser and had the good habit of making his bed, it shouldn't appear this pristine. How could there not even be a single strand of fur? Strange. Did he sneak out last night? Liu Ji wondered. With the potatoes bouncing along at his feet, he headed downstairs, intending to ask the controlled thugs if there were cooking utensils for making breakfast. But as he reached the bottom of the stairs, he saw Calidora standing on the spot, staring at a piece of paper with a complicated expression on her face. Liu Ji hadn't really spoken to Calidora much, slightly hesitated. But after glancing down at the eager potatoes by his feet, he scratched his head and decided to approach her. After all, he remembered that this lady supposedly knew how to speak in incantation. Hey, Liu Ji greeted as he came around in front of her. Oh, Liu Ji, you're awake. Calidora smiled at him. What's up? Well, it's a bit embarrassing, but I was wondering if there's anything to eat. Liu Ji scratched his head. These little ones are hungry again, or if you could just tell me where the kitchen is, I could whip something up. No need for that, Calidora said, turning toward the back of the inn. Number 1, 2, 3, go prepare some food. Make it more, these little ones can really eat. A few moments later, 3 sleepy-looking burly men emerged from a side room, yawning as they headed toward the kitchen. All right, just sit here and wait. Calidora smiled at Liu Ji, then glanced at the paper in her hand before setting it aside with a sigh. Liu Ji found a chair to sit on while at the same time instructing the potatoes to go outside and get some sunlight to satiate them for the time being. Curiosity then got the better of him, and he asked, by the way, where is everyone? Osa didn't seem to come back last night. That. Calidora rubbed her temples. Yane and Guogui are probably still asleep. Mervant went to check out the market. As for Osa, he went with Captain Shilo, Old Master Nox, and Jirunini to the Hunters Guild yesterday. They took on some kind of job and went off to make money, leaving us with just a note. They didn't plan for everyone to go together. Liu Ji was taken aback. Well, usually not everyone goes on a mission together, Calidora said with a wry smile. Just like how I need to stay and keep an eye on things here, while Mervant would probably take on a solo gathering task. Initially, when we were splitting teams, the plan was for Captain Shilo to take you, Yane, and Guogui with her, but now it's flipped. You're the one taking them out, which isn't exactly the most balanced team. Oh, I see. Liu Ji scratched his head. He recalled that the cat lady called Guogui was an archer, which meant he'd be protecting 2 ranged fighters by himself. This might have been a challenge for the old him, but now, well, things were different. Having learned some water magic, Liu Ji had gained a new understanding of his body's capabilities, and he was eager to test them out. The only thing he worried about was whether hunting was different from straightforward combat. Would the overall value of a hunt be affected if he just went around blowing off monsters' heads like before? As the two were talking, Mervant suddenly appeared at the inn's entrance, with an unusually solemn look on his face. Merv? Calidora asked. What's wrong? Callie, I've discovered a serious problem, said Mervant gravely. Go on. Calidora gulped nervously. I think there was a reason Old Master Nox was in such a hurry to take on a job and leave. Perhaps, because he didn't want to lend me money. Who? Calidora was slightly taken aback and blinked several times. Did you find something you want? Yes, I found a sword, a really good one. Mervant sighed. It's not quite on par with Dark Verdict, but for where I am right now, it's perfect. So, how much is this sword? Calidora asked. The shopkeeper said it's 2,000 gold karga, Mervant answered. And 1 gold karga is worth 10,000 regular karga. Which means to say, it's 20 million karga. Calidora blinked several times. She was clearly struggling to comprehend the value of this foreign country. Yeah, that's right. And you know what? A bowl of noodles here costs just 10 karga. That means I need to earn enough to buy 2 million bowls of noodles before I can afford that sword. Calidora's mouth fell open as she did the mental math, finding herself completely dumbfounded by the sheer amount of money. So, forgive me, Callie, Mervant said, turning to leave. As much as I'd love to spend a few more days with you, as a man, I need to earn some money. Only then can I better protect you. With that, he walked out with a sense of tragic determination, disappearing into the shadows of the buildings around. At that moment, an exasperated voice came from behind Kalidora and Liu Ji. Has that idiot never considered he might just be getting fleeced? Yane said, frowning as she descended the stairs. Ha ha, that's probably exactly what's happening. Kalidora grimaced. Well, it's not a bad thing if he's motivated. That guy does need to save up more money. Just make sure you're there to haggle for him when the time comes, Yane said as she reached the bottom of the stairs. She glanced at Liu Ji and asked, Hey, good morning. Did you sleep well? Yeah, pretty well. Liu Ji grinned. And you? Could have been better. Guogua kept snuggling under my blanket, Yane said with a yawn. But it's fine. Get ready, we'll head out and explore the city soon. Even though you aren't relying on magic in fights yet, I think it's about time you got yourself a staff. If you are enjoying the novel, please take a minute to leave a review on Novel Updates. Support me on Patreon and gain access to advanced chapters. Check out my other novels. I'm really not the demon god's lacquer. Conquering Otherworld starts with a game. Novel notes. 1,412 words. Staffs are incredibly useful tools. While it's technically possible to cast all types of spells without using a staff as a conduit, the difficulty level when going staffless was entirely different. Imagine going grocery shopping without a cart or basket. You could still carry the groceries, but you would be limited to what your two arms could hold, making the process cumbersome and inefficient. A staff, in this analogy, is like a shopping cart. Not only does it make channeling magic easier and more fluid, it also helps stabilize the intricate spell structures, preventing them from collapsing if the caster's concentration falters. Advanced techniques, such as multilayer casting, pausing a spell mid-cast, or preparing spells in advance, all required the assistance of a staff. As for instantaneous casting, a technique so powerful yet seldom used, it necessitates a highly specialized, top-tier staff. Even though the staff Miser possessed was top-tier, it couldn't perform instantaneous casting because its structure wasn't designed for that purpose. In any case, now that Liu Ji had started learning magic, he needed a basic practice staff at the very least. Just like when shopping at the supermarket, though one might not need a cart, they should at least grab a basket. However, with Yane's knowledge and discerning eye for magic, Liu Ji picking out a cheap, flimsy wand for a couple of hundred coins just wouldn't cut it. With Yane standards, nothing under 1,000,000 Kaga even caught her attention. The problem was, they didn't have that kind of money. Yane did have some savings, which she initially thought would suffice, but the currency conversion left them with only a few 100,000 Kaga after selling the precious metals. After spending the entire day wandering the market with Guogua, they hadn't bought and only gained a growing wish list of items. Guogua, especially, was disheartened. During their last battle, she had burned through an entire quiver of specially crafted arrows, which were meant to be reusable. Seeing the quality arrows in the market yet lacking the money to purchase meant that she had to settle for a bundle of standard arrows crafted with slightly better materials. After lunch, the three of them made a decision. It was time to earn some money. After informing Kalidora, the trio prepared to head to the Hunters Guild to find some work. But just as they were about to leave, the well-fed potato younglings emerged from the inn, lining up and burrowing into the ground. It was as if they had sensed something and instinctively formed a line behind Liu Ji. Liu Ji eyed them, then looked to Yane and asked, perhaps they might be useful. Yeah, why not? Let them come. Yane nodded. They don't cost anything besides food, so no harm bringing them along. Thus, the trio departed the inn together with the bunch of potatoes. Kalidora sat at the front desk, chin in her hands, sighing deeply. She had known this would happen, but still. Sigh, it's really just me left to mind the shop, hey, Kalidora muttered, burying her face in her arms and blowing bubbles out of sheer boredom. Just as she was settling into her armoury, she heard a cocky voice from in front of her. Well, what kind of establishment is this? 3 low-tier hunters swaggered in, the leader flicking his hair as he leaned on the counter and asked, Hey, miss, how much do your services cost here? Kalidora glanced at him and replied with a sigh, a single room is 800, a double bed is 1,000, and a standard room is 1,280. 2 cups of hot water included. Whoa, that's pricey. The man raised an eyebrow. Your services must be top-notch, huh? Who? Kalidora gave him a sidelong glance. What kind of service are you looking for? Come on, you know what I mean. The man grinned. Something fun, of course. As he spoke, he reached out toward Kalidora. Oh, I get it. Kalidora casually stepped back, dodging his hand. She then turned her head back and shouted, "Hey! Time to work. 3 deluxe oil massage packages, stat. Got it." With a roar, a group of muscular men burst out of the kitchen. Before the 3 hunters could react, they were hoisted up by the burly men and carried off into a back room. What followed was a cacophony of screams. "Ooh? Why do all these requests look so lame?" Yane muttered while carefully scanning the posted jobs. "Guegui, have you ever been to a hunter's guild before?" "Ah, no, but if it's these sort of bulletin boards," Guegui glanced nervously at the crowded room and whispered, "perhaps all the good jobs have already been taken." They were speaking in the common tongue, so Liu Ji didn't understand. He tugged on Yane's sleeve and asked, "What's wrong? Are there no suitable jobs?" "Yeah, the payouts are pretty bad." Yane shrugged. "Seems like all the good jobs have been taken." "I see." Liu Ji scratched his head. "Should we ask when new jobs will be posted?" "No need, it's written right there." Yane pointed to a countdown timer next to the bulletin board. "It says new jobs will be posted next week." "Oh, is that so?" Liu Ji had seen it, just that he couldn't understand what was written. Should we just take a whole bunch at once?" Liu Ji suggested. "If we can complete a few jobs in one go, it might be worth it." In the MMORPGs of his previous life, this was everyone's go-to strategy. Players would grab as many quests as possible from one area, complete them all in one go, and then turn them in all at once. Even if the rewards weren't huge, seeing the map clear of exclamation marks was incredibly satisfying. "I think hunters' guilds have a rule that you can only take one job per team," Yane answered hesitantly. "But they don't stipulate how many people are needed for a job." Liu Ji spread his hands. "We could each take one. That's only 3 jobs." Yane started, then suddenly looked at the potatoes surrounding Liu Ji. There are 7 of them. Adding the 3 of them equated to 10, and coincidentally, there were exactly 10 jobs left on the board. The figures lined up too perfectly to resist the temptation of taking them all. "These are the leftover jobs anyway, so I doubt anyone would mind if we bent the rules a little, right?" Yane mulled for a bit before making up her mind. "Let's do it. We'll aim to finish them all before the new jobs come out next week." Having said that, Yane began pulling down the job requests, stacking them into a neat pile, and plopping them down on the reception desk as the receptionist stared at her in astonishment. "Hello, we're taking all these single-person jobs. Please provide us with the necessary details." Yane placed a special emphasis on the words single person. The receptionist glanced at her, then at the stack of job requests, and surprisingly, broke into a smile. He enthusiastically assisted her, quickly preparing all the necessary documents without questioning the legitimacy of their approach. Other hunters in the hall gawked at them, muttering among themselves in disbelief. Soon enough, they had everything they needed. The receptionist even escorted them to the door with a friendly wave. Yane, Guegui, and Liu Ji walked out, bewildered by the cheerful send-off and couldn't help feeling like something was off. Having never participated in a hunt before, they were completely oblivious to what they had just done. Shortly after the party left, Master Luo entered the hall with a fresh batch of jobs. As usual, he glanced at the bulletin board. And then, he froze. He distinctly remembered putting up the backlog of jobs the previous day, so how were they all gone today? Could it be that the legendary charity hunter, unsung hero of the industry and job board sweeper, has reappeared after all these years? No, that can't be. Wasn't the job board sweeper the current Hunt King? Has that fella taken on an apprentice in secret? If you are enjoying the novel, please take a minute to leave a review on Novel Updates. Support me on Patreon and gain access to advanced chapters. Check out my other novels. I'm really not the demon god's lacquer conquering otherworld starts with a game. Novel notes. 1,283 words. Yane was growing increasingly doubtful. The more she thought about it, the more it felt like the people at the Hunters Guild were treating them like suckers as they sent them off. In truth, it was because Yane and gang were unaware of market rates. She and the others assumed the jobs were meager simply because they seemed easy. At first, Yane thought that these were the leftover, undesirable jobs no one wanted. But reflecting on it now, she suspected that there might be an issue with the job's remuneration. Moreover, there was the size of the guild and the volume of the board. If new jobs were posted only once a week, how could that small board hold enough work? Unless they had been looking in the wrong place? Could there be another, less conspicuous area where jobs were posted? Well, that seemed possible. They'd have to ask someone about it the next time they returned. but for now, they had these jobs in hand, so they might as well get to work. These jobs weren't difficult and were perfect for giving Liu Ji some practice. Magic was something one had to use often to master, and since Liu Ji was so physically strong, these simple jobs, especially ones that required the monster's body to be kept intact, were ideal for practicing his magic abilities. Water magic, in particular, was well suited for this kind of precision work. As for those gathering jobs, Yane glanced at the little potato youngling clustered at her feet, then at Guagua. Suddenly, she had a brilliant idea. 2 days later, in the plaza outside the Hunters Guild. Clang! With a loud crash, a massive wyvern, its body covered in lava-like scales, was dropped onto the ground by Bumigake. Staff responsible for inspections immediately rushed over, greeting the Hunt King and quickly beginning to examine the wyvern's condition. Bumigake didn't even wait for the results, he had complete confidence in his handiwork. He simply strolled up the steps toward the guild hall, knowing full well that his hunt would receive a perfect evaluation. And just as he expected, moments after stepping through the doors, a loud cry rang out behind him. Hunt King Bumigake has successfully captured a flame-scaled great wyvern. 68.3 meters. Body intact. Job completed to perfection. A wave of cheers erupted from the hunters gathered in the hall, celebrating the triumphant return of the strongest among them in the most passionate, sincerest way possible. Ha! Bumigake, nicely done. Master Luo, having just finished assigning another job, came over and gave the former a hearty hug. But bad luck for you today. Old Soup Dumpling's team just snagged today's big prize. Ha ha ha, I was worried I wouldn't be able to resist taking on another job, so I intentionally returned late. Bumigake chuckled, waving to the veteran team across the room led by the hunter known as Old Soup Dumpling. The veteran hunter was currently shouting across the hall, inviting him over for a celebratory drink. Ha, that's rare. A chance to have a drink with you doesn't come often. Come on, forget Soup Dumpling, this round's on me, Master Luo said, patting Bumigake on the back and leading him deeper inside. The two of them found a table and sat down. Bumigake accepted a drink from a fellow hunter and called for more food and ale. Then, turning to Master Luo, he asked, by the way, have the folks who took on the Blackhorn Sky Wyvern job returned yet? Ah, them? Not yet. Master Luo shrugged. It's only been 3 days. Not everyone can finish a job as quickly as you. Yeah, that's true. Bumigake muttered, scratching his head. What, are you worried about them? Master Luo chuckled. You were the one who vouched for their ability back then. Now you're getting anxious. It's not that I'm worried. Hunters don't need others fretting over them, Bumigake said, hesitating. But they didn't really seem like hunters, you know? I'm just a bit concerned they might run into unexpected trouble. Well, even if they do, that's how hunting works. Master Luo shook his head. The line between hunter and hunted is always thin. Yeah, you're right. No more of that. I'm sure they'll come back in one piece. Bumigake took a sip of his drink, casually scanning the room for something to change the topic. His eyes landed on the now empty job board. Eh? Why's the board empty? He asked, puzzled. Did you not have time to put up new jobs, Master Luo? Ah? I was going to ask you about that. Master Luo chuckled. Have you been going around telling people stories about being the job board sweeper back in the day? A few newcomers came in the other day and took up every remaining job in one go. I thought they were paying homage to you. Ooh? For real? Bumigake was rather surprised. But I haven't run into any new faces recently. Is that so? Master Luo mused, stroking his chin. Maybe they heard about your legend from someone else. Or it might not necessarily be related to me. Perhaps they're just the type looking to challenge themselves, like I used to be. Bumigake chuckled. What kind of people were they? Let me think. There was a short girl, a cat girl with a bow, leading a bunch of stocky familiars with leaves on their heads. Oh, and the most striking of their bunch was a young man with long, bright green hair. He's really hard to miss. Bright green hair? That's pretty unusual. Bumigake nodded, taking a mental note of the description. If I run into them, I'd like to have a chat and see what they're about, he thought to himself. Guagua was somewhat dumbfounded. She still couldn't figure out how what was supposed to be a 3-person hunting party had turned into Liu Ji and Yane doing all the hunting while she wandered the hills with a bunch of potatoes picking fruit. She also wanted to hunt together with Yane. Were it in the past, Yane would surely bring her along to hunt. But now, Even the job sheets for gathering had ended up in the hands of the potatoes, who were busily chattering and plotting out the best routes to take and what stuff to gather. Guagua was on the verge of tears. Wasn't her job supposed to be leading the potatoes? How had it turned into the potatoes leading her? And even when they encountered monsters, the potatoes were the ones to spring into action and bring them down in no time at all. Guagua didn't need to lift a finger at all. It left her feeling like a complete outsider, just following behind the potatoes in a daze. The only thing she had to do was cook for them when mealtime came around. That was how her life had been for the past 2 days. But at last, the ordeal was nearing its end. Up ahead, she could see the final thing they needed to gather, a solitary bright red flower growing on the mountainside. This time, it seemed the hard rock of the mountainside was finally too much for the potatoes to handle. All at once, they turned to look at her expectantly. For the first time in 2 days, Guagua felt touched. At last, she realized she wasn't completely useless compared to the potatoes. If you are enjoying the novel, please take a minute to leave a review on Novel Updates. Support me on Patreon and gain access to advanced chapters. Check out my other novels. I'm really not the demon god's lack of conquering otherworld starts with a game. Novel notes. 1,311 words. Water flowed fluidly, clear and crisp. A huge wolf, nearly 3 meters in length, trashed violently, desperate to escape the watery prison that enveloped its head. But no matter how hard it struggled, the transparent, crystal-clear liquid clung to it like a relentless parasite. No matter its efforts, the water refused to release its hold. Unable to hold out, the wolf inhaled a large mouthful of water. Gradually, its struggling weakened, and it eventually collapsed to the ground, motionless. Ha! Liu Ji exhaled, and with that, the ball of water dispersed, splashing harmlessly to the ground. He wasn't in his water element form, so maintaining control over water with this level of precision had been a real challenge. Not bad, this has been your best attempt, Yane remarked, sounding satisfied as she walked over to the now lifeless wolf. With a flick of her finger, an icicle extended from her fingertip, and she drove it through the corner of the beast's eye. With a quick twist, the wolf's breathing ceased for good. Although there was a bonus for bringing it back alive, the magical space they used for storage couldn't sustain living things. Given the number of jobs they had undertaken, trying to keep all their quarry alive was simply too much trouble. Phew, this should be the last of them, right? Liu Ji asked while rotating his shoulder. His control over magic wasn't proficient enough yet, and he would subconsciously tense up his muscles when using magic. Thus, while he didn't find it mentally straining to cast spells, his muscles would ache after. This sort of reminded him of the old days playing video games where he would unconsciously move his body along with the character on screen, even if it didn't help. Yeah, that's all the jobs. Yane nodded. Now we just have to find Guagua, help her wrap up her jobs, and we can head back. At that moment, a high-pitched scream pierced the air nearby. Help me! Liu Ji and Yane turned to see Guagua, clutching a small red flower in her hand and tears streaming from her eyes, running for her life. Surrounding her were the potato younglings, all running at full tilt. Behind, a massive lizard, easily 7 or 8 meters tall, roared as it chased after them. Liu Ji's eyes widened, and without a second thought, he activated his desert manifestation form and sprinted over. With a powerful leap, he kicked at the enormous lizard. The creature, however, opened its jaws wide and lashed out with a sticky tongue, aiming to snatch Liu Ji up. But the lizard caught nothing but sand. Liu Ji's body dissolved into flowing sand, snaking its way up the lizard's head. With a swift motion, his right hand transformed into long strips of sand, which he used to bind the creature's gaping mouth shut. At the same time, Yane had finished her chanting. Electric current shot forth from her array, racing through the lizard's eyes and snaked deep into its brain. With a convulsive shudder, the massive creature's eyes rolled back, and it slumped to the ground with a resounding thud. Guagua, finally safe, came to a stop, resting her hands on her knees as she gasped for breath. Liu Ji landed beside her, asking in his broken common tongue, "You okay?" Guagua managed a shaky smile. "Why yeah. Thanks." Yane also approached at this time, observing the unconscious lizard curiously. Scratching her chin, she muttered, "Weird. According to the reports, monsters this large shouldn't be in this area." "Guagua, where did you encounter it?" "I was picking this flower," Guagua explained breathlessly, holding out the red bloom. "It suddenly came down from the cliff and scared the life out of me." "Ah? Isn't this the flower from the final gathering job?" Yane eyed the flower, then frowned as she cross-referenced it with the notes provided. The report mentioned that the flower could attract monsters, but only if there were such large monsters in the vicinity. Something about this still didn't sit right. Could it have just been bad luck, running into a dangerous creature wandering out of its usual territory? It wasn't impossible. Well, we'll take it back and ask around, Yane said before starting a complex incantation. A stone golem emerged from the earth, lifting the unconscious lizard onto its back. While the lizard wasn't a part of the jobs they had taken up, in a place like this, they could probably find a buyer willing to pay for such a large, intact specimen. Their work was done, it was time to head back to the city. Bam! Nice job, rookie. Here's your payment, the guild receptionist said, placing a heavy pouch of coins onto the counter. A total of 180 gold kargas, count it if you want. Thanks. Mervyn grinned, accepting the pouch. His eyes briefly flickered gold, confirming that the amount was correct. Hey, brother, made another big score. A fellow hunter waved at him from across the room. How about a drink to celebrate? Sorry, I've got something to take care of today, Mervyn replied, offering a polite smile before pocketing the coins and heading out of the hall. Heh, that guy's really striving hard, muttered the hunter as he watched Mervyn disappear into the street. He's been running 2 jobs daily for the past few days. Even the donkeys at the next door mill don't work that hard. 2 jobs daily? Another hunter was taken aback. How's he pulling that off? Half a day for a single hunt. No, he's not taking hunts. He only does gathering jobs. The first hunter shrugged. Word's been going around that this new guy is some kind of gathering maniac, taking the most dangerous gathering jobs and finishing them in half a day. Who? That's rather impressive, the other hunter mused, sipping on his drink. Yeah, lots of folks want to pick his brain about gathering. Too bad the fella's been so busy. He hasn't even sat down for a meal yet, sighed the first hunter. Not sure what's driving him to work so hard. Who knows? Maybe he's saving up for a massage, the second hunter joked. A massage? The first hunter blinked. What massage? Eh? Haven't you heard? There's a new massage place on North Street. Every masseuse there is built like a brick house, the second hunter explained. What's the big deal? The place on South Street's pretty intense, too. Last time I went, the old man working there nearly broke my back. Heh, there's where the North Street one is different, the second hunter said, lowering his voice. The owner's got some kind of special talent. After a single look, she can make it so that you don't feel a thing no matter how hard her staff works you over. All you feel is relaxation. Ooh? No way. You don't feel the pain. The first hunter rubbed his chin, clearly intrigued. That's got me tempted. What do you say, want to check it out? Nah, I can't afford it. The second hunter shrugged. It's crazy expensive. Like 10 gold kargas for a single session. 10? That's daylight robbery. The first hunter's eyes widened in shock. Yeah, totally, the second hunter agreed. But the establishment opened with that pricing right from the start. Those 3 idiots from Maybing's squad were the first to find it. They thought it was some kind of shady business, but they walked in, got their muscles realigned, and left their entire savings behind. Last I heard, they're out on a new job to save up for another round. If you are enjoying the novel, please take a minute to leave a review on Novel Updates. Support me on Patreon and gain access to advanced chapters. Check out my other novels. Time Really Not the Demon Gods Lacquer Conquering Otherworld starts with a game. Novel notes. 1,285 words. Mervyn was at a loss. For 3 days straight, he had been slogging tirelessly from dawn to dusk, braving the elements and wild on his gathering jobs. With each successful job, his personal reputation rose steadily, and after completing today's job that paid a hefty 180 gold kargas, his savings had finally surpassed the 500 gold karga mark. He was pleased at being a quarter of the way toward his goal of 2,000 gold kargas and decided it was time to take a break, head back to the inn, and celebrate with Kalidora. Perhaps they could enjoy a quiet moment together and share his small victory. But when he arrived at the inn, he was shocked to find a long line of people waiting outside, a stark contrast to the once quiet, out-of-the-way inn. Seasoned hunters were chatting and laughing, and a few even recognized Mervyn and greeted him warmly. At that moment, Mervyn had a feeling Kalidora had probably done something to keep herself busy while he was away. But what really left him speechless was seeing the very sword he had been saving for, sitting casually on the counter inside the inn. Callie, that sword, how did you? His voice faltered as he struggled to find the words. 2,000 gold kargas, Kalidora said with a slight smile. There aren't many swords that sell for that price, so it was easy for me to figure out which one you were talking about. What surprised me was that you weren't being ripped off. This sword is really worth every single karga. The sword on the counter was magnificent. The scabbard was a deep rich red, like polished amber, with woven intricate patterns of golden threads across the hilt. Even with the blade still sheathed, its intimidating sharpness was unmistakable. But 2,000 gold kargas? How did you? Mervant began, but before he could finish, 2 hunters emerged from a nearby room, bid Kalidora farewell, and left the inn, laughing and chatting. As soon as they left, 2 more hunters walked in, placed 20 gold coins on the counter, and said, "Boss, 2 full-body massages with maximum strength, please." Of course. Kalidora smiled, making brief eye contact with each of them before gesturing to a nearby room. "Just find an open bed in that room." The 2 hunters acknowledged happily and headed into the large room. Mervant watched in stunned silence as Kalidora casually pocketed the 20 gold coins. He couldn't believe it. He had only made 10 gold coins after hours of work on his first day out in the wild. "Don't look at me like that." Kalidora shrugged. "I didn't plan for things to turn out this way. It all started when 3 idiots came looking for trouble. I wanted to teach them a lesson and make a quick buck, but they were too noisy, so I used a temporary pain-numbing spell on them. They left surprisingly happy, and then more started showing up. I tried to scare them off with the high price I'd used to overcharge the first guys, but for some reason, more and more people just kept coming." "Wait, so you've already earned 2,000 gold kargas doing this?" Mervant asked in disbelief, lowering his voice. "More than that actually," Kalidora whispered. "I've got 8 strong men working here, each handling 11 or 12 clients a day. Plus, there's the occasional request for that girl's services. We get about 90 clients a day. Even after buying your sword, I still have a few hundred gold kargas left over." Mervant's lips twitched. While he was deeply touched to receive the sword he had been coveting, he couldn't shake the strange complicated feeling deep down as he stared at the measly 500 gold kargas he had worked so hard to earn. "Kali, don't you need a new staff too?" Mervant asked. "You can't keep using that old practice staff forever." "Don't worry," Kalidora said, pulling Mervant to sit beside her. She leaned her head on his shoulder and said, "I've already found the one I want. I'll buy it in a few days when I've saved up a little more. Besides, I wanted to get your sword first so you'd have a reason to stick around with me." "Ah, well, yeah." Mervant scratched his cheek, feeling a rare flush of warmth on his face. There was a bit of gratitude, a bit of shyness, and maybe, just a little bit of, well, strange sensation of becoming a kept man. At the Hunters Guild, Guegua stood at the counter, submitting her completed jobs. A total of 10 bulletin board jobs, which brings your total reward to 486,400 kargas. Since they were completed so efficiently, we're rounding it up to 50 gold kargas. "Here you go," the receptionist said, handing her a small pouch of coins. "Ah, thank you." Guegua took the pouch, feeling a little conflicted. Though she knew that these jobs were minor, the arrows she had been eyeing cost 1,000 kargas each. A single gold karga could only buy 10 arrows. If this sum was split between the 3 of them and the 7 potato younglings, she would barely have enough to get 50 arrows. It felt like too little. After thanking the receptionist, Guegua left the guild hall. The huge lizard they had brought back was still lying on the open square outside. Yane was negotiating with some guild staff, while a crowd of onlookers had gathered. Seeing the situation, Guegua jogged over, weaving through the crowd. "Yane, what's going on? Are they not buying it?" "Yeah, it's a bit tricky." Yane nodded. "Since we didn't take a job related to this monster, they are only willing to purchase it at a discounted rate of a corpse. If we want full price for a live specimen, we'll have to wait and see if someone posts a job for it. Also, it's really unusual to see a gnarled lizard this close to town," one of the guild staff uttered while scratching his head. "Are you sure you didn't pick up someone else's lost quarry?" "I already told you, no." "Have you ever seen a lost quarry chase people around, trying to bite them?" Yane snapped. "And if it had escaped from someone else, then we'd still be credited for catching it, wouldn't we?" The staff exchanged uneasy glances. Yane's team didn't have much of a track record, so they were hesitant to make a decision. Just as the situation seemed to reach a stalemate, a voice called out from the crowd. "Who? What's going on here? Why is everyone gathered here?" Everyone turned to see a tall, muscular man, nearly 1.9 meters tall, with a massive sword strapped to his back, stepping through the crowd. "Ah, Sir Hunt King." The guild staff perked up as if they had found a lifeline. There's a bit of a situation here. These folks say they encountered a gnarled lizard in the nearby forest. Really? The nearby forest? Bumigake was surprised. That's odd. Why would there be a gnarled lizard there? That's what we'd like to know too, Yane said, frowning. But that's exactly where we ran into it while collecting the crimson flower. Bumigake turned to Yane, then glanced at Liu Ji standing beside her. When he noticed Liu Ji's striking green hair, his eyes widened in surprise. Wait a minute. Are you the ones who cleared the entire bulletin board? If you are enjoying the novel, please take a minute to leave a review on Novel Updates. Support me on Patreon and gain access to advanced chapters. Check out my other novels. Time really not the demon god's lack of conquering otherworld starts with a game. Novel notes. 1,181 words. Yane couldn't figure out what had happened. Ever since that big shot Bumigake heard that they had cleared all the jobs on the board, he had been overly friendly toward them. The guild staff no longer doubted whether their captured quarry had been taken from someone else either. However, they still needed to find a buyer for the giant lizard. While the Hunters Guild had a storage facility for live creatures, renting it temporarily was both cumbersome and expensive. As they sent out messages to potential buyers, the Hunt King, Bumigake, enthusiastically invited the three of them for a drink in the hall. Since he had just helped them out, and given that the lizard showing up had been peculiar, Yane didn't refuse the offer and brought Guagua and Liu Ji along. Bumigake led the trio through a bustling hall to a small private room on the side and was greeted by others all the way. Hunters generally dislike private rooms, preferring the rowdy atmosphere of the main hall. Therefore, private rooms were usually empty unless people needed to discuss important matters. After such conversations, they would return to the hall to continue eating and drinking. Bumigake chose the private room not only to get to know this mysterious group who had cleared the job board but also, more importantly, to address the issue of the lizard they had brought back. After ordering some food, Bumigake shut the room door and turned to the trio. I hope you won't take this the wrong way, he began, but gnarled lizards have never been seen in the nearby mountain forests. I must ask you to verify once more, are you absolutely sure that's where it was encountered? I've said it a dozen times already. Yane frowned. And besides, I have no reason to lie about some weak lizard. Even if 10 of these lizards, or 100, showed up, I could still handle them. No, don't get me wrong. I can see you're capable, Bumigake said as he sat down, clasping his hands. I'm not doubting your skills. I just want to consider other possibilities. Perhaps you were farther from the forest than you realized. Or maybe you made a wrong turn and ended up somewhere else. I'm certain we didn't. Yane shook her head. Like I said before, we were collecting crimson flowers there. Based on the task information you provided, that type of flower grows mostly in the nearby forest. Yes, but that doesn't mean that forest is the only place where it grows, Bumigake responded. I just want to double-check in case there was some kind of mistake. Yane sensed a headache coming on as she watched this strong hunter rubbing his forehead. Why do I get the feeling? No, let me ask straight up. Is it a big deal if gnarled lizards show up in that forest? A big enough deal for you to be so eager to prove it's all just a misunderstanding? Bumigake hesitated for a moment before sighing resignedly. Well, it could just be a coincidence, but... Yane sat up a little straighter. Gnarled lizards are cave dwellers. Their main habitat is the shallow valley stone forest to the east of the city, Bumigake explained. That area is full of jagged rocks and natural caves formed in the crevices, which most of the lizards call home. Maybe they just ran out of space there. Yane jested. If only that were the case. Bumigake sighed. The thing is, their habitat has been expanding steadily. New caves form and old ones are regularly abandoned, so overcrowding is unlikely. Maybe it was just hunting nearby. No, forget it. Let's stop beating around the bush. What is it that you are really worried about? Yane asked solemnly. Bumigake fell silent for a long moment before finally speaking. You know that Mere City's hunting industry thrives mainly because of the valley to the east, right? Yeah. Yane nodded. It's in the introduction. The valley is home to powerful beasts rarely seen elsewhere. Exactly. That's why hunters from all over the world come here, Bumigake continued. They come to make friends, hone their skills, and one day, to conquer the valley and hunt its most formidable beasts. But for over 200 years, despite the booming industry, no one has ever declared they've conquered the valley. Do you know why? Yane shook her head, urging him to continue. Because, deep within the valley, there sleeps a beast no one has been able to defeat, Bumigate said gravely. The last time it awoke, it triggered a beast tide that nearly destroyed Mere City. And the first creatures to exhibit strange behavior during that event were the gnarled lizards. Atop a tower peak outside Mere City stood a woman. Her dark hair and white cloak billowed in the wind as she gazed down at the bustling city below. Interesting, she murmured to herself. Seems that this side of the world also has warriors who could stand in my king's way. Her eyes were fixed on the Mere City Hunters Guild. Then, she turned her gaze toward the deep valley in the distance. Her gaze pierced through the mountains and forest, seeing through layers of leaves and branches, reaching far into the valley. There, within the dark gorge, a colossal beast opened its eyes. Its golden irises that gleamed like burning stars locked onto the distant peak. Just that there was no longer anything on the peak. The beast let out a long, slow breath, its gaze shifting in another direction. After a moment, its eyes closed once more. Hey? What's the matter? Are you all right? Yane waved her hand in front of Bumigate's face. Ooh? Oh, sorry. Bumigate muttered with a shake of his head. Strange, I felt like something was watching me just now. There might be quite some things that are watching you. Yane pointed under the table. Like them, for example. Bumigate was taken by surprise and glanced down, finally noticing the bunch of potato younglings beneath the table, staring up at him and chattering in their incomprehensible language. It was fortunate he couldn't understand them, because Liu Ji, who could, was frozen in shock. The potatoes were discussing how long it would take to stew Bumigate's muscular calves until they were tender. For some reason, these little things had recently become obsessed with discussing food and, if they couldn't find a suitable topic, would make one up. As a result, their conversations had grown increasingly bizarre. Just as Bumigate and the potatoes were locked in a staring contest, a commotion erupted outside the room. Moments later, a familiar, cocky voice rang out. Hey, brothers! We've caught that dragon. And quite a few big lizards too. So, can anyone tell me, are these lizards worth anything? If you are enjoying the novel, please take a minute to leave a review on Novel Updates. Support me on Patreon and gain access to advanced chapters. Check out my other novels. I'm really not the demon god's lack of conquering otherworld starts with a game. Novel notes. 1,305 words. Nox stood in the square proudly. Behind him lay a massive black-winged dragon as well as several huge lizards. From the appearances of Nox and his party, it was clear that this hunt had gone quite smoothly. Although their clothes were slightly torn, none of them seemed injured. However, differing from the triumphant reactions of those around, the guild staff wore grim expressions. All the lizards were gnarled lizards. Moreover, the Blackhorn Sky Wyvern's habitat wasn't supposed to overlap with that of the gnarled lizards. Once might be a coincidence, but this was the second time. And even more of these creatures had been brought back this time around. During this period, there had also been other reports of gnarled lizard sightings. To put it simply, the situation had escalated beyond what the guild staff could handle. They processed the Blackhorn Sky Dragon job as per protocol, but decided to report the lizards to their superiors. As for handling these lizards, the staff gave Nox the same options they had given Yane, either try to find a buyer or sell them at the reduced price for a corpse. On learning that a live gnarled lizard was only worth around 200 gold karga, Nox decided not to bother with the hassle and sold them at the reduced rate. After all, money only matters when it's safely in one's pocket. Just then, Yane and her group came out of the guild hall, curious about the commotion. Nox immediately spotted Liu Ji's vibrant green hair and dashed over in a flash. With a smug smile, he asked, "Hey, Yane. How's the hunting been going these past few days?" "Oh, not much. Just doing some small jobs and earning a bit of pocket change," Yane replied casually, though her gaze shifted to the lizards Nox had brought back. "Where'd you catch those lizards?" "Oh, those? We ran into them while hunting the wyvern," Nox replied, slightly puzzled. "Why, you want to roast one just like Osar does?" "No, it's just..." Yane glanced over at Bumigate. The Hunt King's face was grim, his eyes fixed on the lizards Nox had brought back. Nox noticed Bumigate's presence and was surprised to see him with Yane. But more importantly, he sensed something off with the vibe all around. The slight unease on the guild staff's faces had already made him suspicious, and now seeing Bumigate's reaction. Nox cast a glance at the lizards and asked, "Hunt King, do these lizards mean something?" "Yes." Bumigate sighed. "It signifies something terrible." He turned around abruptly and said, "I need to see the guild master. I'd advise you all to stay within the city walls for now." And if you have time, stop by the guild often. There may be more updates soon. With that, he entered the hall and disappeared up the stairs. Nox scratched his head in confusion, looking to Yane for answers. The latter just shrugged. We should regroup and figure things out. If this gets worse, we might need to consider leaving sooner than planned. Swing! Swish! Several sword strikes flashed through the air in an instant, slicing through the rusty chains hanging from wooden poles. Each link fell to the ground, cut neatly into identical half-circles with a metallic clatter. Wow! Incredible! Awesome, brother! Hunters in line clapped and cheered loudly. Mervyn sheathed his sword and smiled sheepishly. He hadn't meant to show off, he just couldn't resist testing out his new blade. And after trying it, Mervyn felt the difference. The new sword fit him like a glove, far more responsive than his previous blade, Dark Judgment. While wielding Dark Judgment, Mervyn always felt as though the sword was a beat behind his intentions. Sometimes, it even felt like the blade resisted him, refusing to follow his will. That was because Dark Judgment, the proud dragon-forged sword, didn't yet acknowledge him. But his new sword had no such issues. It felt as though his movements and the blades were one and the same, allowing him to swing it with perfect precision. The blacksmith who sold it to him called it Blazing Hound. In a way, Blazing Hound and Dark Judgment were opposites. While Dark Judgment was selective and demanded the best from its wielder, Blazing Hound was like a loyal dog, devoted entirely to its master. At least for now, I'll wield you, Mervyn thought as he glanced at the two swords at his waist. But one day, Dark Judgment, I'll earn your recognition. As Mervyn mused, he suddenly heard his name being called. He looked up to see Yane, Nox, and the others approaching. They had spotted the crowd here and, on seeing Mervyn, quickly hurried over to ask what was going on. Mervyn, naturally, anticipated what they would be asking and explained the situation in a few simple sentences. When Nox heard that Calidora had been making over 1,000 gold carga a day, he was completely stunned. Nox himself had taken Osar, Shiloh, and Jirunini out on a job, earning slightly over 5,000 gold carga between them. He had planned to generously share a few hundred with Calidora as thanks for watching the inn. But now he realized she was making double their individual earnings by just staying home. Nox was utterly speechless. This was the first time he had lost out to anyone from their group in terms of making money. If Nox was surprised, Guagua was downright devastated. She looked down at the 50 gold coins in her hand, then up at everyone else, who had earned over 1,000 each. Worse still, the 50 coins weren't even all hers. Guagua suddenly felt the urge to cry. As for Liu Ji and Yane, Liu Ji couldn't understand what was going on. Yane didn't care. And the potatoes? They had no interest in money. They only cared about food. Guagua realized, to her dismay, that in the end, she was the only one truly hurt by this turn of events. At the top floor of the Hunters Guild, the elderly guild master, a seasoned hunter, leaned back in his chair and sighed deeply. Gnarled lizards roaming freely. I thought I'd never see such a thing happen again in my lifetime. Unfortunately, it has happened, Bumigake muttered from across the table. Guild Master Deo, we need to figure out a solution. Yes, we do, the old hunter agreed, sitting upright. The city walls won't hold. We'll need to acquire heavy weaponry and hire powerful mags, but that will be difficult. Once they learn the truth, they might not want to come. What? Bumigake frowned. Are we staying here? Shouldn't we be evacuating? As long as the people survive, Mere City can be rebuilt. No, there's no time. The guild master shook his head. You've never seen a beast tide, so you don't understand. When it hits, the speed will be terrifying. Maybe we hunters can escape, but... He looked at Bumigake straight in the eye and said, you've spent years in hunting circles, so you may not realize this, but even in this so-called city of hunters, hunters make up less than 1/10 of the population. Bumigake opened his mouth to argue but stopped as memories of the city's craftsmen, guild staff, merchants, and hunters' families flashed through his mind. He suddenly realized that the non-hunters far outnumbered the hunters. Bumigake, we are hunters. We are warriors, the guild master said gravely. We are the walls that protect the people from the beast tide. If we flee, they will all die. If you are enjoying the novel, please take a minute to leave a review on Novel Updates. Support me on Patreon and gain access to advanced chapters. Check out my other novels. I'm really not the demon gods lacquer conquering otherworld starts with a game. Novel notes. 1087 words. Night had fallen, and the massage parlor was closed for the day. After dinner, everyone pushed the tables in the dining hall together to form a large makeshift conference table. Everyone was seated except for Liu Ji, who was outside feeding his potatoes, since he couldn't understand the common tongue. Yang planned to speak with him separately later. So, how's everyone's earnings been these past few days? Yang asked. Not bad, we made a little over 5,000 gold karga, Nox replied. I earned about 4,000, Kalidora added. But after buying Mervyn's sword, I have about 2,000 left. All right, then you can split some with Guagua to help her replenish her arrows, Yang suggested. I'll cover her, Mervyn volunteered. I owe her anyway, and it was partly my fault she lost all her arrows. Ah, I can chip in too, Osar said. I don't really need much for myself. Same here, Girunini chimed in. Let's go shopping together, we can pool our resources. Hearing this, Guagua, who had been feeling down, immediately perked up. Ah. Thank you all. But I only need some enchanted arrows, it won't cost too much. Yang nodded and said, figure it out among yourselves. We're all on the same team, so don't worry too much about the money. Try to turn as much of it into supplies and gear as possible. Once we leave this region, all this money will just be metal scraps. Nox raised an eyebrow. You sound like we're about to leave soon. That's exactly what I wanted to discuss with you all, Yang said, her face grave. If things unfold as expected, the city is going to face a beast tide soon. The room fell silent. Everyone, except for Guagua, who already knew, widened their eyes in shock. What? A beast tide here? Nox's voice jumped 2 octaves higher. The monsters outside this city are nothing like those around other towns. If a beast tide hits this place, it'll be wiped out, no. It nearly was, Yang went on. According to Hunt King, this city has faced a beast tide once before. The hunters defending it fought until they were all wiped out. The only survivor was the guild leader at the time, who died standing on the city walls after surviving the last night. That's horrific. Osar swallowed hard. I'm surprised anyone stayed here after that. Girunini frowned. With that kind of risk, this city shouldn't have been rebuilt. True, but that was almost a century ago. Yang shook her head. And hunters go where quarry is. They probably came here to make money at first, but over time, they just gathered in larger numbers. And where hunters gather, merchants follow, Shiloh added. Soon after, ordinary people came too. It's easy to say people shouldn't return after a disaster, but as long as the land offers a better life, they'll always return. None of that concerns us. Mervyn tapped the table lightly. We're just passing through. We can leave any time. Exactly. That's the issue we need to discuss, Yang said. Do we stay or do we leave? Do we have any reason to stay? Mervyn frowned. Personally, I don't. Yang shrugged. But I don't know if any of you do, maybe you feel you can't just abandon the residents here. I won't lie. I do feel that way, Oso admitted. I don't want to see this place destroyed by a beast tide, but realistically, I don't think I'd make much of a difference by staying. If you stay, you won't be the only one, Yang reassured him. They're short on powerful mags. If they give me a perfect environment to chant, you know what I can do. But if we stay for that reason? Mervyn sighed and glanced at Osar. It's fine if we all survive unscathed. But what if one of us dies? Osar, have you thought about how you'd feel afterward? I know. Osar sighed defeatedly. That's why it's just a thought. I don't plan on making it a suggestion. Well. Then, anyone with other opinions? Yang asked. I have a tiny question. Unexpectedly, it was Nox who raised his hand. When was the last beast tide? The last time? Yang thought for a moment. Around 90 over years ago, I think. 90 over years ago, huh? Nox stroked his chin. So, have the special monsters around this city always been here? I'm not sure what you mean by it always, but the city's only about 200 years old. 200 years? Muttered Nox pensively. Do you have some sort of idea, old man? Mervyn asked. No, I was just asking. A couple of things caught my attention, Nox said nonchalantly. It's up to you guys whether we stay or leave. Even if we stay, I can always get us out if things go south. When it comes to running away, there aren't many in this world who are better than me. While that's impressive, why does it sound weird? Guagua muttered under her breath. It ought to sound weird. If I were as invincible as the tyrant, I wouldn't need to run. Nox shrugged. It's just the reality of lacking strength. Save that conversation for later, Yang cut in. For now, let's focus on the matter at hand. Anyone else has an objection to leaving before the beast tide hits? Everyone exchanged glances and agreed that leaving was the best option. Osar seemed a bit down but didn't raise any objections. All right, it's settled, then. Yang nodded. Tomorrow, we'll all head out to get supplies and gear. Don't bother buying food, leave that for the people here. We can gather food easily on the road. Our focus should be on equipment. As for the leftover money, I suspect the currency comes from the holy capital Karga, so we'll hold on to some cash. But just to be safe, we should convert some of it into high-value commodities. Yang stood up, then added, that's it for now. I'll go have a private chat with Liu Ji. Are you going to tell him everything? Nox asked. Or just that we're leaving? Yang hesitated for a moment. I'll figure it out. With that, she turned and headed out the door. If you are enjoying the novel, please take a minute to leave a review on Novel Updates. Support me on Patreon and gain access to advanced chapters. Check out my other novels. I'm really not the demon god's lacquer conquering otherworld starts with a game. Novel notes. 1,323 words. Yang wasn't particularly worried that Liu Ji might have an intention to stay once he heard the truth. The reasoning was similar to what she had given Osar. At the end of the day, they were just passing through this city and had no reason to risk their lives for a place that held no meaning to them. Yet, she still hesitated, unsure if she ought to tell Liu Ji the full truth. As for why? Humans are emotional creatures. One can form a fragile connection with a stranger even if just a few words are exchanged. And hearing that the said stranger has died shortly after can easily weigh on one's heart. But if one doesn't know anything to begin with, then at least they'd be spared that burden. Yang watched Liu Ji scrape a plate against the bodies of the potatoes. She wasn't clear whether he was cleaning the plate, the potatoes, or feeding them. Finally, she took a deep breath and walked over. She crouched next to him and said softly, we need to get ready to leave. Who? We're leaving already. Liu Ji was slightly surprised. Still, he set down the clean plate and picked up another with leftovers before smearing the food across a potato's face. He wasn't being crude, this was just how the potatoes ate. Yes, we've roughly earned enough. Tomorrow, we'll head to the streets to pick up supplies, and then we'll be off, Yang said with a nod. By the way, is there anything you want to buy? Me? Let me think, Liu Ji muttered, scratching his head. Didn't we talk about getting me a practice staff? So, I guess that's a necessity. Yang shook her head. I meant something you actually want. Something I want, who? Liu Ji mulled for a moment, glancing down at his worn-out robe. How about some new clothes? Yeah, that's a good idea, Yang agreed, stroking her chin thoughtfully. I'll go with you tomorrow to look around. I don't need much myself. Sure. Liu Ji grinned. Once I'm done feeding these little guys, I'll head to bed. All right. Yang nodded. Then, as she glanced at the bunch of potatoes, a sudden thought came to her. By the way, do these potatoes of yours need anything? Them? Liu Ji went blank for a moment, then nearly blurted out that they only cared about eating, but he realized he'd never actually asked them before. Perhaps these little guys had their own wants and needs? But even if they do want something, I doubt we could afford it. Liu Ji chuckled. We've spent most of our days training and didn't earn much. That's true, Yang sighed, rubbing her temples. She hadn't expected to leave so soon, and it looked like she would have to borrow some money now. Liu Ji noticed Yang being this way and found it a little strange. Is there a reason we're in such a rush to leave? Well, not exactly. Yang hesitated for a moment. Yeah, we still have 2 missing companions. If possible, we want to get to the holy city of Karga to search for any news about them. Oh, I see. Liu Ji nodded in understanding. Yeah. So, you should get some rest tonight, Yang said with a gentle smile as she stood up. I'm returning to my room now. Good night. With that, she went back into the inn. Watching her leave, Liu Ji pondered for a while, then turned to the little potatoes. Hey, little fellas. Is there anything you guys want besides food? Early the next morning, everyone split into groups and set off early to buy what they needed. Osa handed some gold coins to Guegua before heading off with Jirunini to explore the market. Neither of them had any specific gear in mind but were interested in buying supplements for body strengthening, so they went together. Nox decided to go solo. As a summoner, the things he required were scattered all over the city, and dragging anyone else along would be punishment in itself. Shiloh, too, went off alone. She didn't need anything in particular but planned to buy essential travel supplies and convert some of their spare funds into high-value commodities. She also intended to wander around to see if she could find any good deals on raw materials. Kalidora needed to pick out a new staff, so Mervyn tagged along. Yane, who needed to buy a practice staff for Liu Ji, brought him and Guegua along, making it a group of 5. Just as well, she could ask Kalidora for a loan. As they stepped outside, they were immediately met by some hunters who had been waiting to get massages. Seeing Kalidora leave, the hunters were taken aback and startled. "Hold on, Lady Boss? You're heading out? Are you not opening for business today?" "Ah, my apologies." Kalidora gestured to the sign at the door. "I have certain matters to take care of. We're closed for today." "Oh, is that so?" The hunters were clearly disappointed but accepted it unwillingly. "We'll just come back tomorrow, then." After saying their goodbyes, the hunters left. Kalidora sighed softly as she watched them walk away. Even though running a massage parlor was never her plan, seeing the dejected hunters still stirred mixed feelings in her. But she knew she couldn't stay here forever, playing the role of an establishment owner. Sooner or later, she'd have to move on. "Callie, maybe you should change the closed for the day assigned to something permanent," Yane suggested. "No need to leave them with false hope." "Yeah, I'll do that when we get back if nothing else comes up." Kalidora sighed once more. "It's funny. I know this isn't the same, but it reminds me of when I was forced to flee my hometown. Anyway, enough of that. Let's go find a good staff." With that, she led the way out of the alley. Mervyn glanced back at the inn, pursing his lips for a moment before following after. Yane let out a sigh and motioned for Liu Ju to follow. Soon, the once bustling inn was quiet again, save for the occasional hunter stopping by, only to see the closed sign and leave in disappointment. The Hunters Guild was just as lively as ever. Even though it was still early, many hunters who had finished their morning routines gathered in the hall, ordering breakfast and chatting with their comrades. The mood was boisterous, though fewer were drinking this early in the day. Of course, it was still the Hunters Guild, so there were always a few who started the day with meat and ale. As the hall was buzzing with activity, someone suddenly shouted, "Hey! Master Luo is here?" This early. All the hunters were taken aback and turned toward the entrance. Sure enough, there stood Master Luo, arriving much earlier than usual. Moreover, he didn't look like he was here for breakfast. In his hands were a thick stack of papers. As Master Luo made his way up to the platform, the crowd exchanged puzzled glances. Was he really going to hand out consignments this early? Most teams weren't even fully gathered yet, so taking on jobs without discussing them with absent teammates would be tricky. Just as they were wondering what was going on, Master Luo started. And with just one sentence, the entire hall fell deathly silent. Based on the unusual activity we've observed recently, the Guild Master would like to inform everyone that there's a strong possibility we'll be facing a beast tide in half a month's time. If you are enjoying the novel, please take a minute to leave a review on Novel Updates. Support me on Patreon and gain access to advanced chapters. Check out my other novels. I'm really not the demon god's lack of conquering otherworld starts with a game. Novel notes. 1,703 words. The hunters were panicking. Every hunter who came to Mir knew the terrifying tale of the beast tide that once ravaged this place. But that event, which happened nearly a century ago, had become nothing more than a distant legend. None believed it was something they'd ever have to face in their lifetime. Thus, when hearing that a second beast tide was around the corner, chaos erupted. The hall was filled with noise as hunters debated their next steps. Some wanted to flee with their families. Others discussed how to evacuate the city's population. There were even talks of seeking aid from other regions. Yet, not a single soul suggested standing up and fighting against the beast tide. Master Luo felt a sense of déjà vu watching the scene unfold. Back when he and the old guild master were still carefree children, the Hunters Guild had been in the same state of panic the day the disaster struck. The heroes who made their legendary last stand all those years ago hadn't intended to be heroes. Heroes are simply those who, when left with no other choice, stand up to face the storm. But if given a choice, one that didn't violate their core principles, no one would willingly sacrifice themselves. That was, if there was a choice. Master Luo let out a long sigh before speaking up again, his voice cutting through the noise. We have no choice but to fight. The entire hall fell eerily silent once again after Master Luo said this. The hunters turned their gazes to the old man, awaiting his next words. They were all aware he was the only one in the room who had lived through the last beast tide. Perhaps some of you are thinking of fleeing, of arranging an evacuation, of setting up defensive choke points and retreating gradually, the old man said slowly. But this isn't an army we're facing, it's a beast tide. None of those strategies will work. Beasts won't follow roads. The wilderness is their domain. When the tide descends, they will be everywhere. These beasts aren't coming for us specifically, they're simply fleeing in panic. Any lone stragglers will just become their snacks along the way. Beasts may need to rest, but they can go for days, even weeks, without resting. We aren't the same. We need sleep and can't see well at night. And sure, some of these creatures are like us and struggle in the dark, but in a beast tide, the question isn't which beasts won't show up but how many will. And many beasts are nocturnal, after all. As for reinforcements, don't think for a second that we'll be the only ones affected by the tide. The cities closest us will be hit as well, and they'll be looking for help too. Sure, other places might send aid to them, but... Master Luo sighed heavily again. We are on our own. Some of you might think our role is to be the wall that holds back the tide, he continued. But the beast tide is like a storm on the ocean. It's not targeting us specifically, we just happen to be in its path. They won't relentlessly attack us, but there will always be starving creatures that will try to breach our defenses. Our job is to hurt them enough to make them retreat. But even just doing that costs the lives of every hunter in the last beast tide. Yes, in the beast tide, this city is nothing more than a lone boat out on the ocean. And we, the hunters, are the cannons defending that boat. You must be prepared because behind us are countless ordinary people in this city, your friends, your families. Stepping off this boat in the middle of the storm means that death awaits them. We have no retreat. The staff was pristine, as smooth as white jade. A gorgeous blue gem hung at the tip, and barely visible intricate carvings were etched along its long, sleek body, though it felt perfectly smooth to the touch. This staff is not bad, Yane remarked, examining Caladora's new staff. Top-quality materials and craftsmanship, and the price is reasonable. It's odd that no one has bought it until now. Well, it is mere, after all, the old craftsman chirped from his rocking chair. This place is a battlefield for hunters, and healers aren't exactly in high demand here. That's true. Mags are rare among hunters, and healers even rarer. Yane nodded. No wonder water attribute staffs aren't selling well. Exactly. I was planning to sell it to the merchant guild, but this young lady had her eye on it, so I held onto it for her. The old craftsman chuckled. There aren't enough healers around here. We need to take care of the ones we have, or who will patch up these reckless kids when they get hurt? Hearing this, Caladora opened her mouth but hesitated for a moment before saying softly, actually, we're just passing through. Ha! Don't worry about it. The old craftsman shook his hand dismissively. I never said I'd only help those who stay. We'd just like to take care of our healers. After all, if we treat healers well, more will come. Ah? I guess that makes sense. Caladora eked out a weak smile. Seeing her this way, Mervyn quickly changed the topic. By the way, Yane, didn't you also want to buy a staff for Brother Liu Ji? Have you found one? Oh? Someone else needs a staff. The old craftsman caught out and glanced at Liu Ji, who had just been called brother. He scrutinized Liu Ji for a bit before asking curiously, hey, what's this kid's race? I've never seen anyone with such green hair before. He's, maybe a potato who gained sentience after 1,000 years, Mervyn jested. See those little ones following him? Maybe they're his juvenile form. Ha ha. Don't take me for a fool, boy. I've seen my share of mags, and I know a familiar when I see one. The old man chuckled. No way these little things turn into a human. But speaking of which, this little brother doesn't seem like much of a mage either. He's only just started a while back. I'm looking to buy him a practice staff, Yane explained. Oh, is that so? The old craftsman nodded. Then, what does he usually fight with? Yane eyed Liu Ji, then answered uncertainly, his fists, most of the time, I think. Then a staff might not be the most practical. How about this? The old man got up, walked to the shelf, and drew out a gemstone-studded bracer which he tossed to Yane. An alternate form staff. Yane was surprised. You don't see many of these. They are rare in most other places but are quite common here. The old craftsman grinned. Hunters need both hands for their weapons to fight against giant beasts, so the traditional staff and weapon combo isn't very practical. Most magic-wielding hunters need something like this. It's a good idea, but this one isn't quite right. Yane handed the bracer back. Do you have anything better? This one is a little too basic. Too basic, who? The old craftsman raised an eyebrow. He was surprised, but he didn't make an objection. After all, if the customer wanted something better, who was he to complain? He scanned Liu Ji's hands, mulled for a bit, then disappeared into the back room. A few moments later, he returned with a dark brown bracer, simple in design but embedded with 4 differently colored gemstones. How about this one? It's made from the shell of a juvenile Earth Soul armored dragon and has gems for all 4 elemental attributes, he explained. It should be perfect for someone who's just started dabbling in magic and wanting to practice different styles. This is not bad. Yane examined the bracer. How much? 300 gold karga, the craftsman replied. Kalidora looked him in the eye. Of course, we could haggle it down to 180. Ah, what the hell is wrong with me today? The old man winced, realizing his slip-up. 180 it is. Thanks. Yane smiled, handing the bracer to Liu Ji. Here, wear this. It's your new staff. Ooh? There are staffs in this form? That's convenient. Liu Ji's left hand morphed into sand, slipping through the bracer without even needing to undo the straps. Well. Now that's interesting, the old man said, clearly intrigued. Alternate form staffs are great because they let you wield other weapons at the same time, Yane explained. But the downside is that the magic residue will touch your body directly, which can be tricky when using offensive spells. Try this out for now, and if it becomes a problem, we can get you a traditional staff later. Make sure you come back and see me when that time comes, the old craftsman chipped in with a grin. Oh? You know incantation, too? Liu Ji asked in pleasant surprise. Of course. A craftsman that can't use magic is just a blacksmith. The old man chuckled. Will you all need anything else? I'm good, Yane said, turning to Kalidora and Mervant. We've got everything we need, Kalidora replied with a shake of her head. What about you? Yane looked at Liu Ji. Anything else you want? Well. That, Liu Ji scratched his head awkwardly. But I don't really have money. Don't worry. Just put it on Yane's tab. Kalidora chuckled. Might as well spend the cash while we're here and lighten our load for the road. Are you sure that's okay? Liu Ji glanced nervously at Yane. Don't worry about it. Yane knocked him lightly on the head. I've got plenty of ways to earn money. Well, in that case. Liu Ji rubbed his nose, glanced at the potatoes beside him and swallowed nervously. These little fellas said they each want a weapon. If you are enjoying the novel, please take a minute to leave a review on Novel Updates. Support me on Patreon and gain access to advanced chapters. Check out my other novels. I'm really not the demon gods lack a conquering otherworld starts with a game. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Sally Fox audiobook.